Presidency in the US just days after the country failed to meet his target of getting first inoculations into the arms of 70% of adults by July the 4th. With the Delta variant leading to soaring rates of transmission and hospitalizations in largely unvaccinated parts of the country, the president once again urged people to take advantage of the availability of vaccines.
Study after study after study has shown that since early May, virtually every COVID-19 hospitalization and death in the United States has been among the unvaccinated. So if you're vaccinated, you're protected. But if you're unvaccinated, you're not. And you're putting yourself, more importantly, maybe from your perspective, your family and your friends at risk. So please get vaccinated now.
Fully vaccinated people in England won't be required to self-isolate after coming into close contact with someone who tests positive for COVID-19. That change was announced today by the British government. Currently, they would have to quarantine for 10 days. Russian security services say they've apprehended an Estonian diplomat red-handed in St. Petersburg receiving classified material from a Russian citizen. The Russian government says the actions of the diplomat were incompatible with his status. From FSN's Moscow bureau, Stuart Smith reports.
The FSB says it's in no doubt the activities of Consul Marta Lieta are hostile to Russia and that action will be taken against the foreign diplomat in accordance with the norms of international law. A spokesperson at the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs said Estonia has once again demonstrated its unwillingness to overcome its unprovoked hostility. Estonia declared Russia a military threat last year. The Estonian Ministry of Foreign Affairs says the charge of embezzling sensitive material was completely ungrounded and cannot be regarded as anything other than a provocation by Russian authorities. Stuart Smith, Moscow.
Cybercriminals are demanding $70 million to unlock the accounts of thousands of businesses targeted in a new ransomware attack. The hackers gained access through a Miami-based computer systems firm, which then infected companies in 17 different countries. From FSN's Washington bureau, Nick Harper reports.
Are Evil, a Russian-based group of cyber criminals who targeted an American meat processing company earlier this year, say they're behind the hack. They're demanding $70 million in return for a decryptor key to enable the affected businesses to unlock their systems. The FBI is investigating and asking all companies caught up in the ransomware attack to come forward. I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
And the White House now says a high-level meeting will take place with Russia over ransomware later this week, and President Biden says he will also be addressing the issue. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, continuing our look at the situation in Afghanistan as the day approaches when all US and NATO troops will have left the country. We've heard a lot over the last few days about the Taliban retaking territory, especially in the north of the country, and the fears of many Afghans, especially women, about what will be entailed if the Taliban retake control of the entire country. But have they changed over the last 20 years? Frank Ledwidge is a former British military intelligence officer who served in both Afghanistan and Iraq.
I think part of them have changed. They realise that the political attraction of not allowing kites and music is limited. They still cleave, or apparently, to their strict interpretations of the Sharia, which is bad news, obviously, for women and indeed everybody else. Let's remember the Taliban isn't necessarily one big amorphous, or rather even directed unit. There's been a civil war in Afghanistan almost without stop.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country.
Yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com.
The couple told reporters this week that they routinely urge their son Patrick to devote all of his time and resources to his improv comedy education.
We keep telling Patrick again and again that if you don't buckle down and start learning basic concepts like yes and the Herald now, nobody is going to take you seriously later in life.
He has to start thinking about this now.
The parents explained that he should try to get as much out of his improv training as possible by attending improv jams, forming a few indie teams, and doing as much bar prov as possible to keep himself warm for those upcoming Herald auditions.
The fact is, if Patrick were on stage with his fellow improvisers, and one of them were to play, say, a supervillain who's afraid of mice, Patrick wouldn't even be able to identify the game in that scene, let alone respond in a supportive way.
I gotta say, I had this internship at a law firm, but I quit to do a character workshop and a musical elective. I think this is really gonna pay off for me in the long run.
This is the Onion News Network.
It is Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. 603-283-6160 if you want to join the discussion. That's 603-283-6160. With you in the studio tonight, it's Aria.
It's Ian.
And it's Conan.
And there was a lot to go over in regard to the show, and we ended up not going over a lot of it. I don't know what the new Comrec Stack program is actually called, so I'm searching for that real quick. But anyway, there was the update today on the Moors. They didn't finally go to trial because all of this just happened. And these were guys who were arrested. The media described it as a shootout.
Was this like Friday or Saturday morning?
This was Saturday it was Friday to Saturday overnight. They had left Rhode Island. They have a house that they apparently have taken what they call adverse possession of, which is they're occupying what they consider to be an unoccupied structure.
In Rhode Island.
In Rhode Island.
And they were traveling to Maine?
Traveling to Maine for an ostensible training of some sort, I presume with weapons, because they had weapons with them. And
maybe their own version of gun church.
Yeah, I was actually surprised they weren't going to gun church. I figured they
that would have been awesome.
That would be awesome.
And the reason they were on the side of the road is because one of the vehicles ran out of gas or something, and they had to do some kind of gas station trip with a can to come back?
No. So one of them actually explained this today there were, I think, like 10 guys, maybe 8 to 10 guys that had hearings today. One of them's a teenager, so he didn't appear in this particular court. But one of them explained that the reason they were on the side of the road refueling was because they didn't want to go to a gas station and cause an uproar because they had camouflage on.
And they were open carrying, correct?
According to the prosecution, when they make their offer of proof, as it's called, where they kind of lay out what their claim is about what these guys were doing, they made it sound like they were just toting rifles around this car or this van or whatever it was, that SUV that they were driving. And then one of them
protecting their property.
And one of them said that they had the guns in the car, so it's not real clear exactly when the guns came out or whether they did or didn't. But according to the police, they did have the guns while they were on the side of the road, out in the open. So,
and this is Massachusetts, so that sort of thing makes them uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah, it's quite illegal to have a gun or to have any kind of ammunition, or in the case of body armor. They've been charged with a bunch of victimless crimes like having a gun, having the ammunition, having body armor while having a gun, because that's its own crime called possession of body armor in the furtherance or during a crime or something like that. So,
but there was no crime, right?
Having a loaded gun, isn't that one of them as well?
There was no victim. There's like a laundry list of these victimless charges that they've all been hit with. But anyway, to answer your earlier question, Conan, they had left it around midnight apparently from Rhode Island. They were hoping to avoid stirring up trouble. was their thought. They didn't want to be seen by other people on the road. That's why they didn't go to a gas station, etc. And they wanted to travel when there were the fewest people on the road.
Yeah, it's Massachusetts. It's like driving through a prison state. The way they have everything locked down. When you go from New Hampshire into Massachusetts on any of the main roads, the first thing you encounter is all of the signs.
Warning signs.
Buckle up. Put your helmet on.
Yep. No guns allowed.
No guns allowed. No loaded guns allowed.
No fireworks.
It continues to amaze me that, just south of the border here of New Hampshire in Massachusetts, you can't take your firearms, even though here in New Hampshire, it's, totally legal. We have constitutional carry. You can just carry your gun everywhere. In Massachusetts, you can't even have it in your vehicle.
It's like night and day.
It's insane.
And when you consider how many people work, how many New Hampshireites work in Massachusetts and vice versa, you got to wonder why we don't hear about this every weekend. Because
it seems like it would be pretty common.
There's a lot of back and forth. It happens every now and then. We've covered these stories before where someone from New Hampshire was just driving around down there in that prison state, and they throw the book at him because he had a gun in his glove compartment. He forgot about it. I do this sometimes.
Yeah, well, we haven't covered a story quite like this where you've got almost a dozen guys.
Sovereign citizens as well.
Well, no, they don't use that term, Conan. Sovereign citizen is a contradiction. You cannot be both a sovereign and a citizen at the same time. It's impossible.
Oh, that's a good point.
Correct, but this is what the mainstream is throwing around.
They love that.
They've even gone so far as to they had some analyst come out and he was like, I don't understand why these guys claim to be sovereign citizens. Don't they know that that's based in racism? Then
they actually said that.
They said something to the effect that it was founded by white supremacists back 50 years ago.
That's why this story is one of the most interesting ones in a long time, because it flips the script. Like you said.
Absolutely. That's why you're not hearing about this big time.
Really? It's not getting out of the New England area?
No. Oh yeah, we all hear about it, and the mainstream medias are covering this, but they're not flipping out about it. Hey, Biden hasn't talked about it yet, so you know it's not big.
But for anyone that's actually paying attention and listening to what the analysts and the so-called experts are saying, they are painting these people as quote-unquote sovereign citizens. Yep. And like you said, Conan, normally in the media, sovereign citizens are likened to being racist, white supremacists,
cop killers,
etc. And here you've got these guys, they're totally flipped the script. It's a black militia, basically, although I think there's some Hispanic guys in there. One of them, Robert Rodriguez, definitely, it was hard to tell from the footage.
Bronx, New York.
Yeah, there's a couple of Hispanic names in there, so I think it is not all black guys. But it is primarily the Moors is generally considered to be a sort of a black movement. And this is basically a black militia. And that's actually according not just to my interpretation, that's according to one of the guys who was in court today. One of the people who was being charged described themselves as a peaceful militia. Mm-hmm. In fact, he used the term love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice to describe what they stand for.
And repeatedly said not anti-government and not anti-cop.
Right, and there's nothing like anti-white on their website. Somebody had said to me behind the scenes, like, oh, these guys are black nationalists, they hate white people. Well, maybe some are, but at least as far as their official statements on their website, there's no like haranguing white folks or anything like that. It's all about sovereignty. It's all about, getting what they believe their individual sovereignty back. And
if they're individual sovereigns, then they're certainly not black nationalists. Because they're sovereign. They don't support the nation state.
They also claim to be, what is it, national, I forget the term right now. They're sort of both sovereign, at least in the way their terminology sounds, but they also call themselves foreign nationals. That's what it is.
Foreign, okay.
Yeah, so my real basic understanding of the Moors is that they originate from Morocco, which is a country in northwest Africa, right across from Spain. And they believe that America was actually founded by Moroccans, by the Moors who came over from Morocco, and that America, the United States, that landmass is Western Morocco.
Fascinating.
So, yeah, I didn't dig deep into the history of the Moors and the theory, but that's sort of the basic conceptualization that I understood from it. So these guys don't believe they're part of the United States, which I don't blame them for that. I mean, like I said, they say in their hearings, we're not part of your society. which is something that a lot of us have been saying here in New Hampshire as we joined the Shire Society, some of us more than a decade ago at this point. And the whole idea was to have an alternative society of peaceful, voluntary choice, people joining this thing.
Which is what a society is. It's voluntary.
Correct. Yeah, it's a voluntary association of individuals come together for a common purpose. And so that's what these guys are doing. They're just trying to live their lives. They, of course, cited the Constitution, and they accused one of them was real intense, accusing the judge of violating her own constitution, etc. So it was a really interesting hearing today that went on for hours in Malden District Church there in Massachusetts.
And they finally took a recess, and none of us were able to catch what happened after 1:30. I ended up doing an interview with Tom Woods, so I have no idea how it developed after that.
I was listening in one ear, so I heard a little bit about it. Most of the hearings were very similar.
Sure.
The guys were not interested in a court-appointed attorney, for instance. And
that's hardcore.
They're going to represent themselves. There's more to say about it.
By the way, you can find their mission statement at riseofthemoors.org.
That's Moors, correct.
Yeah.
More coming up here. What are your thoughts on the Moors? Should their rights be respected? What a silly question. 603-283-6160. This is Free Talk Live.
When Monster Hunter International discovers one of Isaac Newton's wardstones being auctioned off, they decide to steal it and use it to destroy the Chaos God once and for all. But a mysterious thief upends their plan, and it soon becomes a race against time as something much older and infinitely more evil awakens in the jungles of South America. Monster Hunter Bloodlines by New York Times bestselling author Larry Correia and Baen Books. Visit monsterhunternation.com for more.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
If you're looking for work, or even if you're not, here's an innocent mistake you really want to avoid. Never return calls before listening to your voicemail. Your wireless phone sends calls you didn't answer into voicemail, and it shows you phone numbers for calls you missed. Important. Don't call back callers you missed until you have first listened to your messages. Otherwise, you frustrate people who bothered to leave messages by asking them to repeat a message they just left as your voicemail greeting instructed them to. If you're a job applicant, this alone could be a deal killer. And even if you're not, there are few things you can convey to someone that are as fundamentally maddening as, "I didn't hear you." With money and attention so scarce now, effective communication skills have never been more important. For more tips for job seekers and everyone else, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm.
chat.lrn.fm.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160. If you want to join the discussion, that's 603-283-6160. With you tonight is Aria, Conan, and Ian, and we're talking about the Moors here, and I'm suddenly curious, now that I'm thinking about Bitcoin, how the Moors feel about Bitcoin.
Good question.
If you don't know anything about Bitcoin, then you still haven't missed the boat, believe it or not. Head on over to bitcoin.com, click Getting Started there at the top of the page. There's a number of videos there. They're very short. You can learn the basics of cryptocurrency, and it's important, world-changing information. It's critical to learn about it, and the sooner you learn about it, the better. If you already know about cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, then Bitcoin.com still has something for you at news.bitcoin.com, where you can stay up to date on the latest headlines relevant to you, all on a sleek and easy-to-use modern website. That's bitcoin.com, probably one of the premier sites for cryptocurrency. And we are talking about the Moors here, and I imagine that they're probably pro-cryptocurrency, and this is just baseless speculation on my part, but most of the people who tend toward this mindset of, no, you're not respecting the Constitution that you're sworn to obey, are also not fans of the Federal Reserve System and the Federal Reserve notes. And the cryptocurrency is the most prominent alternative to those, at least in the geographic territory known as the United States.
Just a quick search does find a Facebook page referencing the Moors and Bitcoin, so they're definitely aware of it. To what extent is not clear. Moorish Americans Building a Nation from Bitcoin is the name of the page, with 44 likes.
Okay, obscure page, but
the Moors are obscure. I mean, they're I don't know how many of them there are out there, but it's an interesting group of people that truly, seems to be interested in freedom for their people, which I support them on that.
Absolutely, this isn't the first time the Moors have made headlines by acting like they're free in the territory called the United States that wants you to do anything but act like you're free.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about the hearing that happened today, and I was actually in and out throughout the first part of it. I was planning to come back at 1:30, and then I got an email from Tom Wood saying, hey, here's the link for our interview. I was like, oh yeah, I spaced on that. So I didn't catch any of it. What were the developments? Does there seem to be any hope for these people in the state of Massachusetts?
That's a good question. I mean, they're in like you said, a prison state, and there's some severe restrictions on gun ownership and gun possession in Massachusetts. I do have a list of what they were charged with here, according to masslive.com. They were all charged with unlawful possession of a firearm, unlawful possession of ammunition, use of body armor in the commission of a crime, which isn't actually any kind of real crime. There's no victim. The quote-unquote crime that they were committing while having body armor was having a gun.
Yep.
That's so insane.
Possession of a high-capacity magazine, improper storage of firearms in a vehicle, and conspiracy to commit a crime.
So that's 6 charges.
At least.
All for basically just having a gun.
They're driving from point A to point B. They were going to Maine for some sort of training session. They were going in the middle of the night, had pulled over.
Maine has constitutional carry as well, don't they?
I believe they do. Yep. And I don't know about Rhode Island. I'm not sure as far as where they're coming from, but there is some sort of federal rule about when you're passing through a state like Massachusetts or New York and you have a gun and it's illegal to have a gun in those states, you are supposed to now this isn't legal advice, but my understanding is you're supposed to have it locked up in a gun case or safe or something like that, something with a lock on it or a closed, sealed, locked case of some sort.
So you couldn't just put it in your trunk?
I'm not sure. I'm not going to give legal advice here, but the more locked and away the gun is, likely the better off you are legally. But according to the police and according to the prosecutors, these guys had their guns out on the side of the road. However, they didn't do anything violent towards the police, so it wasn't like they were laying in wait for the state trooper, because you should know that if you pull over on the side of the highway, the more minutes go by, the closer you get to a state trooper pulling over to see what's wrong. What can I do to help? Which, of course, they're not really interested in helping you.
No, they're
they
interested in
a
writing
jail
a
cell.
ticket. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they must have known that was a likely possibility, but for whatever reason, they were there on the side of the road, apparently refilling up a truck that they were traveling in, and having guns out in the open, according to the testimony given by the prosecutor today.
That is definitely not how the media painted it. When I read the story, they were like, there's an armed standoff in Massachusetts. That was how they painted
people.
it.
I mean,
sure, but that's not a standoff.
They locked those communities down.
They did. Yeah.
Apparently, some of them went into the woods, and that was the quote-unquote standoff.
I can't blame them for going into the woods. I mean, they knew that this was a possible outcome, and just kudos to them for having the courage to stand with their rights, knowing the possible outcome that could happen.
At one point, there were more than 200 people that were watching on Zoom at the Zoom hearing, many of whom were actually sort of quipping in with things that were not very nice about the judge. So that was pretty entertaining.
Speaking of video, I think the leader of this group was actually live streaming the event
during it, yeah,
which I believe has also been taken down. And who knows?
Oh, really?
Who knows where that video is?
Hopefully, somebody saved it.
That would be very good, interesting to watch.
Put it on Odyssey if you saved it. That's Odyssey, ODYSEE.com. There, it can't be taken down.
And we're streaming live there tonight, as a matter of fact, on the Free Talk Live channel.
Yeah, that's video.freetalklive.com.
So it was pretty entertaining. During the trial, people would speak up on the Zoom call.
Dude, the judges hate that.
Oh yeah, she wasn't happy about it, and
she's not able to mute all the listeners.
She kept threatening them and said, anybody who continues, you'll be removed from the Zoom call, and they did remove.
That's such a muted judge's power, though, right? It's like normally they would hold you in contempt of court and throw you in jail. And she's like, "I will kick you out of this online meeting." I will hit this button so hard.
There's people coming in probably from outside of Massachusetts. I mean, if they knew you were in Massachusetts, they might be able to come after you for criminal contempt in that case. But if you're calling from, Missouri or Chicago,
just use a VPN and call in from like South Korea,
or what? And that's the thing. Like, if you get booted out, can't you just resync your VPN, get a new IP address, and then change your name and come back in? So I heard some similar sounding voices more than once, just saying some pretty nasty stuff about the judge, which I enjoyed that.
I know David from New Mexico brought it up one night, just how the power dynamics had changed in these digital and phone conference courtrooms, but it never really hit me until right now that the judge really has no way of controlling that except the impotence, of just kicking the person out.
They could turn the whole thing off, I suppose, because they are actually doing in-person hearings now.
In Massachusetts?
Yeah. Even though the court website says there's no in-person hearings and the phone system says there's no in-person hearings, they actually did have people in the court. They did have viewers in the audience. They were keeping them separated, so there's the whole social distancing thing, quote-unquote, going on. So it's a very limited number of people that were allowed into the courtroom. But here's the craziest thing. I've never seen this in a court before. I don't know how many courts are like this. There is a jail cell in this courtroom. It's on the side of the room, and all of the defendants were brought in, wearing whatever they were in jail or whatever, and into this cell. They weren't actually in the courtroom. They were separated by unbreakable glass and a heavy door, and it was hard to understand them because of that. So it was easy to hear what the judge was saying, but not so much the defendants.
A jail cell in a courtroom.
Yeah, it was wild. I'd never seen that before.
And justice for all, so they say. What are your thoughts on having an actual jail cell in the courtroom to hold the people so that, they can't actually make a case for themselves? 603-283.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Karl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. President Biden is making fresh efforts to combat vaccine hesitancy in the U.S. just days after the country failed to meet his target of getting first inoculations into the arms of 70% of adults by July the 4th. With the Delta variant leading to soaring rates of transmission and hospitalizations in largely unvaccinated parts of the country, the president once again urged people to take advantage of the availability of vaccines.
Study after study after study has shown that since early May, virtually every COVID-19 hospitalization and death in the United States has been among the unvaccinated. So if you're vaccinated, you're protected. But if you're unvaccinated, you're not. And you're putting yourself, more importantly, maybe from your perspective, your family and your friends at risk. So please get vaccinated now.
Fully vaccinated people in England won't be required to self-isolate after coming into close contact with someone who tests positive for COVID-19. That change was announced today by the British government. Currently, they would have to quarantine for 10 days. Russian security services say they've apprehended an Estonian diplomat red-handed in St. Petersburg receiving classified material from a Russian citizen. The Russian government says the actions of the diplomat were incompatible with his status. From FSN's Moscow bureau, Stuart Smith reports.
The FSB says it's in no doubt the activities of Consul Marta Lieta are hostile to Russia and that action will be taken against the foreign diplomat in accordance with the norms of international law. A spokesperson at the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs said Estonia has once again demonstrated its unwillingness to overcome its unprovoked hostility. Estonia declared Russia a military threat last year. The Estonian Ministry of Foreign Affairs says the charge of embezzling sensitive material was completely ungrounded and cannot be regarded as anything other than a provocation by Russian authorities. Stuart Smith, Moscow.
Cybercriminals are demanding $70 million to unlock the accounts of thousands of businesses targeted in a new ransomware attack. The hackers gained access through a Miami-based computer systems firm, which then infected companies in 17 different countries. From FSN's Washington bureau, Nick Harper reports.
Are Evil, a Russian-based group of cyber criminals who targeted an American meat processing company earlier this year, say they're behind the hack. They're demanding $70 million in return for a decryptor key to enable the affected businesses to unlock their systems. The FBI is investigating and asking all companies caught up in the ransomware attack to come forward. I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
And the White House now says a high-level meeting will take place with Russia over ransomware later this week, and President Biden says he will also be addressing the issue. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160. If you want to join the discussion, that's 603-283-6160. With you in the studio, it's Aria, Ian, and Conan. And Conan, you mentioned a television show. Like yesterday's episode was really depressing and a bit heavy-hitting, so I want to get into something a little bit less so.
We could do that. You know, you two were off having, well, I'm sorry, two. I don't know what Ian was doing. What were you doing, man, the whole time?
When?
2 weeks, Pork Fest, Fork Fest.
Oh, we were running the show. We had to, process some of the audio files that Aria sent over, and I have all kinds of things to keep me busy during the day.
And they did all of these Sunday episodes as well.
Yeah, we did a Sunday fill-in. There was a midweek fill-in during Forkfest that we did, I think, on a Wednesday or something like that. So,
well, I was working. My regular carrier, they had to pull her appendix out. And one of these days, we might figure out what the thing actually does, but I know one thing that it does do. It likes to blow up on people. It gets infected, blows up, and then I don't know what they did back in the day.
Yeah, I remember you saying that you weren't going to be available, and I was like, well, that's fine. We're going to be at the Porcupine Freedom Festival and Forkfest after that anyway.
Yep.
But it worked out.
Yep, it worked out perfectly. So
welcome back.
Thanks. And speaking of being back, we're all back. Look at us.
I know,
it's
right?
like the good old days.
yeah.
But been working in the garden.
Naturally.
Well, let me rephrase that. I've been living outside in my yard because it's kicked in, and
Sure.
and once you get it started, I mean, you got bugaboos and you got you got to worry about water and whatnot. We had some very nice rain this which I was hoping for, and we finally got it.
Well, I was at a campground during most of that. I would not describe it as very nice rain.
I
mean, it was cold
and wet. That's the one
for
thing that I've been to Porkfest one time. And I actually slept in my truck, so I didn't have to worry about a wet, nasty tent or anything. You were actually in a hotel, right? A motel or whatever they call it?
Yes.
And still, the rain was getting to you after 2 weeks.
Well, we had to be outside each day to record the show, right?
Correct.
And I mean, there were many times we had to just stop recording because the rain was too loud or the wind was too loud or something like that. It was also like 60 degrees. Once you get wet in the mountains of New Hampshire and it's 60 degrees, it's a little bit cold.
Yeah. Well, as far as camping is concerned, I don't miss it. I grew up camping. I actually lived in a tent for about 2 years.
Wow.
I did not know that.
The house wasn't big enough, so I was out in a military-grade tent that eventually started to degrade over time and fall apart. But this was Florida, so all I had to get worried about was mosquitoes and rain. But no, so what I did, worked a whole bunch, worked in the garden, found myself another superhero TV show, which I love, and I'm definitely recommending it.
You very much love these superhero TV shows and movies, I've noticed.
What I am really into are these parodies and these, I guess you can call them crossovers, these different imaginings of superheroes. You got your Marvel, you have your DC, and they're straightforward, and you've got a bunch of real good-looking people with superpowers, and there's really nothing wrong. They really have no issues except going out and defeating evil, which is, I don't know. It's not enough for me.
Yeah, it never feels like there's really a threat because when you watch the Marvel movies that none of the superheroes are going to die.
No,
and if they do, they're going to be back by the end of the movie.
Really?
Correct. So I've always been a huge fan of the anti-hero or the anti-villain type, where you have a lot of gray, where you don't really know where they stand. They have problems. They have issues. This is why I always really like Greek mythology, because you had these gods with all of these issues, just like humans.
Sure.
Except they had these powers, and what it ended up doing? Getting them into trouble. So I'm a huge fan of some of these new reimaginings and parodies and crossovers of these superheroes, and just looking at them in a different light. And so I'm definitely a huge fan of The Boys, which you have a bunch of, I'm just going to say, you have some pretty nasty characters who have superhuman abilities. And what would you do if you had the power to shoot laser beams out of your eyes and fly? I mean, would you be a good Superman? Or would you go off and, take power into your hands, do what you want to do?
So these are the bad guys, is what you're saying.
The Boys, there's a bunch of bad guys in The Boys. But that's not what I'm reviewing this evening. This is something you're familiar with, Ian. It was first animated. I don't even know if this was ever a comic book, but I know that it was animated in the late 90s. And then they turned it into a live action in the early 2000s, which was very short-lived. And I didn't even know it. 2 years ago, Amazon remade it.
They brought it back.
See, I knew about the animated series, never, steeped in it, so I was aware of it. I don't even know what it was all about.
And
I never knew about the live action series in the initial run.
And of course, I'm speaking of The Tick, which
was it like because like I said, I'm familiar with it. I'm aware of the subject, but I don't understand. Like, how did The Tick become a superhero?
It's just,
I guess you have to watch the show.
It is a straight parody. It takes.
Did he get bitten by a radioactive tick?
Who knows?
He did.
I don't remember.
Who knows? But all it is just all of these superhero tropes and stereotypes, and basically they flip them upside down and they throw them at you. So I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. It's cute. The 2000 series, which by the way is on YouTube right now, if anyone's interesting. The Tick in that particular series is Patrick Warburton, who is just, when I think of the Tick, it's Patrick, man. He is iconic. He's just got the deep voice, and he's just dumb as a bag of rocks, and he just plays that character so well. The whole series in general, I wasn't ever a really big fan. I never saw the animated series.
I remember liking it as a kid.
I didn't even know about this new series until like this week, and
Wow.
I stumbled in on it, and I just started watching it, and I got hooked. It's no one you're really going to recognize except Freddy Krueger.
No way.
Jack Earl, what's his name? Jackie Earl.
Oh, the new one. The new Freddy Krueger.
The guy who played, he also played Rorschach in The Watchmen.
The new Freddy Krueger.
Anyways, he's the villain.
Okay.
And
now, who is the villain in The Tick?
He's just absolutely, he's called the Terror.
The Terror?
And he is absolutely brilliant. I mean, I love this guy. I hope he comes back. He's played by the actor who plays Rorschach in The Watchmen. Does a terrific job. All of the characters are just over the top. They got weird names, like they got Overkill, the Ticks.
Well, you would expect that from a superhero show called The Tick.
The Tick's protege is Mothman. It's just over the top and fun, and I really recommend it. However you can get your hands on it. Of course, I have Prime, which I think my Prime is going to be getting used up this month. So
you said this is on Amazon.
It's on Amazon, but there's other ways to get this thing, of course. The older version is on YouTube.
The older live series or the older animated series?
Live action. I'm not even sure about the cartoon, so but I'll definitely want to research that after I finish and catch up. Definitely recommend it. It's fun.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in years, but I remember liking the cartoon a lot as a teenager, and I remember seeing at least a couple of the episodes of the live action one and really enjoying that one as well. The comedy's great. I mean, it's just fun stuff.
It's just silly. It's just silly and cute and over the top.
From what I recall of it, it was funny, but I recall almost nothing about it except that it was a show that I watched when I was a real little kid, and I didn't change the channel when it was on.
Definitely has a real made-for-TV element. Whereas this new updated version, they put some money into it.
Put some money in. Nice.
It's got good acting. It's got good effects, good special effects. Lots of explosions and people flying through walls and stuff. It looks good.
Is the Tick? I'm trying to remember. Is the Tick where there's also like these sort of sideshow superheroes that are kind of buddies with them, or is that something else I'm thinking of?
Like Bat-Manuel?
Yeah, is that the Tick?
Yeah.
Okay, that's right.
And
Bat-Manuel.
Lady Victory.
Yeah.
And they're just dumb. And Mothman, of course, meets them, and he's like, "These are superheroes? What do you got? You guys aren't. You just egotistical maniacs." So it's
good stuff.
It sounds worth watching.
It's all there.
And I have free time now, so I may actually look into that. It sounds like a good use of my time versus some of these television series made on Amazon or Netflix where I just look at them like, yeah.
And they're short little snippets too. I think they're like 35, 40 minutes.
Okay.
Whereas the older version is like 30 minutes each, made for TV.
Yeah.
So you don't got to get in there. I mean, I didn't binge it. I watch maybe 2 episodes a night because that's how I roll.
Sure.
But yeah, look into it.
Well, you're a busy dude. When we get back, we're going to talk about Bitcoin in El Salvador. A lot of people celebrated that they were going to take Bitcoin as legal tender, but it turns out it's a bit more sinister than that. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live.
There's going to be no food by February.
Oh, that seems a little extreme. I find that hard to believe.
Well, watch it happen. Hope you find Christ.
Oh, good luck, buddy. Thanks.
What really turned me away from religion was the fact that most of them are so intolerant and nasty.
What do you mean?
Your life will suck unless you find Jesus. Well, I had Jesus a long time ago, and he didn't really do anything for me, so I got away from that.
Right, and I can tell you that if you want to have that attitude with people, like, well, you better find Christ, or you're going to burn in hell.
Yeah.
Then
Good luck converting people.
Yeah, I really want to hang out with people like you, there, Keith. I really want to hang out with people like you. So I'm sorry to those good Christians out there listening that aren't like Keith. but it's the loudmouths like Keith that do real damage to your religion and how people feel about it.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM. After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover brings her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get 1 free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm.
Hi, I'm Derek J. I don't want a politician to represent me. To me, government is the idea that one group of people can coerce everyone to comply with an edict or face increasing punishments up to and including death. Despite perhaps the most noble of intentions, the best government services are a far cry from what could be provided for by voluntary interactions. Besides, the people who call themselves the government wage wars and put peaceful people in jail for crimes involving no victims. If Starbucks used some of its money to drop bombs, I wouldn't shop there. So why would I support the American empire? The empire does not require my consent.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. That's victimlesscrimespree.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
Do you appreciate what we do? Help us advertise, market, and promote for just $5 a month at amp.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160. We've been talking about comic books here and the Tick, and I feel bad for Mark, who's unable to be here, but I mean, he's all about superheroes and comic books. He was the one who recommended that I finally sit down and watch the Marvel movies. Mm-hmm. And he recommended a place where I could go to find out the exact order to watch them in. And
do they have like a machete order for the Marvel movies?
What is a machete order?
There is absolutely an order to watch them in, yes.
I'm not familiar with the term
machete order. The machete order, as I understand it, I don't know if it originated with this, but there's like a specific order that the Star Wars fans recommend watching the Star Wars movies in, and it's called the machete order. I don't remember what order that is, but
it's very much that, because it's not like you watch the first movie that they made in the Marvel series and you progress all the way up to whatever the final one was called, Endgame.
Aren't there like dozens and dozens of these movies at this point? Like, how
there's
many
like
are
17
there?
or 18. I skipped
there's
ton
like
of them.
20 something.
I skipped both of the Guardians of the Galaxies. I skipped the first Captain America.
Those are the best.
Dude, the characters bored the hell out of me.
Really?
Yeah, they were just flat, dull, uninteresting. I skipped Doctor Strange. I'm regretting that lately.
That's the only one that I actually have seen, and it was fantastic.
It's beautiful. The special effects are really neat.
It just didn't seem like...
Even without an acid trip, it's a really good movie to watch.
But the name Doctor Strange just didn't appeal to me. So when I was going through the machete list, I was just like, okay, well, I'm just going to skip that one. It doesn't look critical in the first place. But after watching the Avengers movies, I mean, especially the last two, I was like, okay, he is a fascinating character. I skipped most of the Hulk movies. I think it was basically just Iron Man, Captain America, and the Avengers movies that I watched. I skipped the Ant-Man and the Wasp as well.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of them. Basically, there was Thor was on the TV while I was in jail, while I was in the medical ward, and there was a TV right out in front of my room. So I couldn't really avoid watching that one. It was fine. I mean, it was nothing I would recommend or ever want to go see again.
Yeah, was it the first? You wouldn't know probably.
It was the first one.
Okay, yeah, that one wasn't the best.
It's horrible.
Yeah,
but one of my favorite Marvel superhero movies is Thor Ragnarok, the last one. But it's
how many have there been?
It's 3 of them.
Okay,
but it's probably because I really like that director. He's a goof.
What was the other one? Dark World or something?
I don't know. I didn't like 1 or 2. I thought they were kind of hokey.
Well, Clamoring has thoughts on the subject. Clamoring, you're on Free Talk Live. Oh, I've got you muted. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm rusty at this.
It's okay.
What's on your mind tonight?
So not any time. Well, I just wanted to chime in on the comic book superhero conversation because I'm kind of a big nerd. So not any time recently, but I used to be a huge comic book collector, like bagboards and backboards and bags and all of that. I don't do that anymore, but I was into a lot of the, at least at the time, indie comics like Milk and Cheese. If you guys have heard of that one.
Never heard of it.
I've never heard of Milk and Cheese.
The subtitle is Dairy Products Gone Bad, and it was about a container of milk and a thing of cheese, and they got drunk on gin and smashed everything up.
Was this written by Jonan Vasquez or whatever his name is? Because it sounds... yep, see. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with the guy. Yeah.
What's the company that publishes it?
I can't recall. It was so long ago.
I hear Milk and Cheese, and I'm thinking Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
No, Invader Zim. He's the same guy who created Invader Zim and Johnny the Homicidal Maniac. And what is the other? There's another character that he's known for.
This is your.
Yeah, and I don't remember the other character. It was Johnny the Homicidal Maniac, Invader Zim, which of course a very long-running series on Nickelodeon. Actually, I guess it wasn't that long. It was like 5 seasons or something, but still one of the best shows that I've ever seen.
Yeah, definitely.
If there's ever a show that I always have downloaded to my hard drive, it's just all the seasons of Invader Zim.
So you said you used to collect a bunch of comic books, but you got out of that. Was it just, did you have like the realization that things were owning you and you wanted to simplify your life? Because that's why I got rid of a bunch of the stuff that I collected as a kid.
Yes, I was 2 reasons. One, I was finding I was toting around huge containers of comic books that that had collector value. And I was moving from place to place and carrying all of these boxes around, and I really wasn't rereading them. And then the other thing was
you're not supposed to open them up and risk bending the pages. You put
I don't think these were ever going to be collector's items.
You wrap them and you put cardboard in there. You're not supposed to open it again, right?
And it just takes up space.
And by the way, if I moved probably as much as most people moved, I probably would have gotten rid of my collection a long time ago. But you know what? I don't move a whole lot, so I still got all of mine.
Wow, okay. And they're all boxed up and neatly packaged so that they can't...
But here's the thing.
That's how we do.
You can only do a couple of things with them, right? Like, you either die with them, and then your kids got to deal with getting rid of them once you die unless they want them, or you sell them before you die. One or the other.
I'm waiting for them to have absolute true value. And by the way, my saving grace, by the way, was Image Comics, because I only had Marvel and DC, and I never really liked those comics. And then all of a sudden, Image happened. Todd McFarlane happened.
I had Spawn #1 signed with a certificate and all of the Spawn action figures. So
I still have some of my Spawn action figures as well.
Nice. And I can't get too far into on the air of some of the other indie titles like Bondage Fairies and some of the Japanese stuff that gets really weird real fast.
Yeah, I can imagine. I've read manga before.
I sell a lot of manga. I don't
know which one is correct.
what I was really calling in to talk about was Conan's comments on The Boys, because I'm a huge fan of that show. That show is just as morbid as I like it. Like, no spoilers, but wow, that last finale, so messed up.
Now, is this show a show that's actually still being produced? Because as we learned with The Tick, it actually was canceled in 2019, regrettably.
I don't know if it was canceled or not.
I don't see how that could happen. It's so popular. I'm pretty sure they're working on season 3 as we speak.
Okay. It's the first time I've heard of it. But I also don't watch a lot of television, so.
Yeah, like I said before, we give these superheroes too much credit. They have superhuman abilities. They could walk through walls. They can incinerate people, and you think they're just going to be good? I mean, what would human beings with that kind of power, what would they actually do? They wouldn't be working for a living. They'd be off on an island or something. They'd be robbing banks, or they'd all be villains.
Hasn't that sort of been the point of all of these superhero movies, though? Is that, they're...
The Avengers, they're all good.
They always have bad guys who have superpowers that they have to overpower and overcome, the power of teamwork and all that.
But they're always aliens.
To kind of segue into the, what would you really do if you had superpowers? One of my other favorite TV shows was Heroes, and specifically the villain, Skylar.
Spock.
Have you seen this, Conan?
Hero, a long time ago, yeah.
So tell me about Heroes.
It's a superhero show, but it started off with a lot. It started off with a lot of young superheroes just discovering their powers, which is more attractive to me personally than superheroes that are already part of a super team or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a bunch of
coming of age superheroes.
Yeah. And so the bad guy had gone through some very, very serious trauma. He had some mommy issues and stuff. And so I think that they touched on how that trauma might affect you as a superhero really well in a really very, very weird way.
Yeah, and he was a collector too.
Yeah.
Speaking of collectors, and by the
way,
he decided that he was going to collect other superheroes' powers and become a superhero or villain, excuse me. And by the way, if you like coming of age superheroes, have you seen Invincible?
No.
It's an animated cartoon. It just came out a couple of months ago, I think, and definitely recommend it.
Are people going to get burned out of all this superhero stuff? It seems like there's a lot of it now.
Not if they keep turning on its head like what I like.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. They're really scraping the barrel right now and coming up with new ideas, I think.
I didn't think people are going to get burned out. You got to remember 6 or 7 years ago, it was all vampire shows all the time, and everyone loved it. They were always talking about it.
And then zombies.
And then they got burned out on it. Then it was zombies, and now it's superheroes. So I didn't think. Yeah.
Aliens, probably.
Well, and they did a really good job bringing Neil Gaiman into the media, too. So he's had a lot of his stories come out.
As long as he stays unwoke. I think he's starting to go that direction.
Who?
Neil Gaiman is a British kind of a fantasy, kind of an emo fantasy writer.
He did Sandman.
So Sandman is coming out pretty soon, I guess, and I'm thinking it's going to be so woke it's going to be unwatchable.
I don't know what that is.
I have never heard of Sandman.
Gods is really good.
But
American Gods is great.
But Good Intentions was really good.
Clamoring, thank you so much for the call tonight. Tell me about Sandman real quick, because I've never even heard of that.
He's basically a god.
Sure.
Who takes care of sleep. He's the sleep god.
Okay,
and
makes sense.
And he has issues. And he's just going around stumbling on his issues.
Okay. That doesn't sound like something I'd really want to check out, but...
A lot of girls like it.
What are your thoughts? 603-283-6160. More coming up about Bitcoin eventually. This is Free Talk Live.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover springs her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments around the world killing innocent people? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin is money that cannot be inflated or controlled by any state. By continuing to use their money, you're perpetuating the killing. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available to you now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. It's Bitcoin.com. Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to mymagicmud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. mymagicmud.com, FTL20.
The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. President Biden is making fresh efforts to combat vaccine hesitancy in the U.S. just days after the country failed to meet his target of getting first inoculations into the arms of 70% of adults by July the 4th. With the Delta variant leading to soaring rates of transmission and hospitalizations in largely unvaccinated parts of the country, the president once again urged people to take advantage of the availability of vaccines.
Study after study after study has shown that since early May, virtually every COVID-19 hospitalization and death in the United States has been among the unvaccinated. So if you're vaccinated, you're protected. But if you're unvaccinated, you're not. And you're putting yourself, more importantly, maybe from your perspective, your family and your friends at risk. So please get vaccinated now.
Fully vaccinated people in England won't be required to self-isolate after coming into close contact with someone who tests positive for COVID-19. That change was announced today by the British government. Currently, they would have to quarantine for 10 days. Russian security services say they've apprehended an Estonian diplomat red-handed in St. Petersburg receiving classified material from a Russian citizen. The Russian government says the actions of the diplomat were incompatible with his status. From FSN's Moscow bureau, Stuart Smith reports.
The FSB says it's in no doubt the activities of Consul Marta Liata are hostile to Russia and that action will be taken against the foreign diplomat in accordance with the norms of international law. A spokesperson at the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs said Estonia has once again demonstrated its unwillingness to overcome its unprovoked hostility. Estonia declared Russia a military threat last year. The Estonian Ministry of Foreign Affairs says the charge of embezzling sensitive material was completely ungrounded and cannot be regarded as anything other than a provocation by Russian authorities. Stuart Smith, Moscow.
Cybercriminals are demanding $70 million to unlock the accounts of thousands of businesses targeted in a new ransomware attack. The hackers gained access through a Miami-based computer systems firm, which then infected companies in 17 different countries. From FSN's Washington bureau, Nick Harper reports.
Are Evil, a Russian-based group of cyber criminals who targeted an American meat processing company earlier this year, say they're behind the hack. They're demanding $70 million in return for a decryptor key to enable the affected businesses to unlock their systems. The FBI is investigating and asking all companies caught up in the ransomware attack to come forward. I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
And the White House now says a high-level meeting will take place with Russia over ransomware later this week, and President Biden says he will also be addressing the issue. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, continuing our look at the situation in Afghanistan as the day approaches when all US and NATO troops will have left the country. We've heard a lot over the last few days about the Taliban retaking territory, especially in the north of the country, and the fears of many Afghans, especially women, about what will be entailed if the Taliban retake control of the entire country. But have they changed over the last 20 years? Frank Ledwidge is a a former British military intelligence officer who served in both Afghanistan and Iraq.
I think part of them have changed. They realise that the political attraction of not allowing kites and music is limited. They still cleave, or apparently, to their strict interpretations of the Sharia, which is bad news, obviously, for women and indeed everybody else. Let's remember the Taliban isn't necessarily one big amorphous, or rather even directed unit. There's been a civil war in Afghanistan almost without stop.
On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
Your amp will directly change more lives by getting Free Talk Live in front of people looking for talk radio online and on the air. When you amp Free Talk Live, you get perks like access to the AMP-only Facebook group and AMP podcast. Visit amp.freetalklive.com.
Terror and confusion fell upon the nation this week after nearly 314 million Americans reported inexplicably losing consciousness for 8 hours straight last night, with countless victims helplessly recovering from the fugue-like state with no memory whatsoever of the lost time. Researchers at Princeton University, who have been studying the alarming phenomenon since its inception, told reporters that though they were unable to ascertain the source of the sweeping condition, it appeared to be somehow linked to the setting of the sun.
Right now, we suspect that there may be some connection between these sudden blackouts and the visions that some Americans have reported experiencing while they were unconscious. But most of these hallucinations are too abstract for us to draw any definite conclusions from.
At this time, we urge people to never turn off their lights and under no circumstances close their eyes for any extended period of... Oh, God. It's happening again.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. 603-283-6160 if you want to join in, take control of the airwaves, and talk about whatever's on your mind. That's 603-283-6160. With you tonight, it's Aria.
And it's Ian.
And Conan.
And we've been talking a bit about superheroes, oddly enough. Unusual topic for the show, but you know, anything is worth talking about. And these... You're absolutely right, Conan. I prefer the hero model where these people they're not gods in the sense of, you know, how people understand God today. This omnipotent, all-knowing, perfect being. I prefer the Greek mythology model where they are flawed. I mean, they are very powerful, but they're also very flawed. Just like
makes them interesting.
Yeah, just like a human being.
Well, yeah, exactly. You could see yourself in this godlike material, and vice versa. So it's attainable. It's actually something that we can understand as flawed characters ourselves.
It's at least relatable. But let's go to the phones. We got GB calling from Pennsylvania. GB, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yeah, thank you very much, and great work there at the station. I think there are superheroes in the world, and they need protected. You know, they have limits, and there's some of those. What I would like to look at as superheroes are people who stand out, who have witnessed high government corruption and human rights abuses, and they wish to speak up about it. And
like Edward Snowden?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Edward Snowden and also other nations too. And I have a question I'd like to ask, and I appreciate this open forum. How open is Free Talk Live to people calling about government officials' responses to witness protections for people who have witnessed high government corruption and vast human rights abuses in this country and in other countries? In other words, protections for
For whistleblowers,
people
right?
who might not even be citizens. They're often in danger of their lives and could be killed quietly and to shut them up.
Well, as to how open we are, I mean, as long as you keep it FCC friendly, you can call in and talk about whatever. So, I mean, it's completely
I
open.
That. I have some stuff going on here. I sent some information to, I don't want to go into too much detail, sent some information out, no response from the U.S. Department of State other than I was supposed to contact another department of the U.S. Department of State.
Okay, so what is this about? I mean, did you witness something, or did somebody else witness something?
I tried to get actually a phone call made. I don't want to go into details because if I could be identified, it could fall back to a certain person who has.
So if you don't want to talk about it, what's the? Maybe I'm missing something. You don't want to tell us about what?
Okay, well, I want to let the government officials know that the heat will be on them, good or bad, if they don't respond.
Okay. Well, I mean, we know that there's federal agents listening to this program. I don't know if it's from the Department of State, however. I suspect it's the FBI that's tuning into this program, and I don't think that you can expect that they're going to take the time to pass on a message from somebody who called in. So probably the best way to let the government agents know something is to send them registered mail, something where you can confirm that they have received, where they cannot deny having received whatever statement it is that you want to make.
I would definitely not recommend email.
How valuable this forum is to human rights or anything that is.
This is just a radio show.
What you're doing.
Yeah, this is a talk radio program. It's here to entertain. It's here to, hopefully inform. And this is not a way to get a message to any sort of government agent in any meaningful sense. If you are trying to contact government agents about whistleblowers and holding somebody accountable, you need to have a paper trail, number one. You need to have a trackable means of knowing that whatever it is that you're sending to them was received by them. And the only way you can do that I'm aware of is some sort of a USPS either, I don't know if it's registered or certified mail, but it's like basically
certified mail. And even
certified mail is like $10 for a letter, basically.
And even then, you'll have no way of knowing whether or not the recipient actually received it or whether it was their secretary who immediately threw it into the trash, and then whether or not, if the person did receive it, whether or not they actually read it or just threw it into the trash.
The very nature of a certified is that there is a response on the other end.
You know they got it.
And you know who got it. You have a signature. So you can't just, actually, I take that back. These days, because of the old COVID nonsense, we can sign for those.
Oh, geez.
We can.
Well, GB, thank you for the call tonight. I hope you reach the representatives, the quote representatives that you're trying to reach.
I expect it's not going to go anywhere simply because they don't want to talk to whistleblowers. They're not interested in people blowing the whistle. They're not interested in being held accountable, which is why people like Edward Snowden had to go to the media. You know, when Snowden wanted to get the word out about what he had found out when he was working as a contractor for the NSA, a lot of the media didn't want to talk to him, but he found some people who were willing to hear what he had to say and put it out there, like Glenn Greenwald, for instance, at the Guardian. So if you can find the right people in mainstream media that are willing to, they think your story is worth telling, that's the best way to get the government's attention, is when it's splashed across the front page of the newspapers.
Yeah, except you just brought up the problem. You would think that the media would have been all over everything Snowden was bringing to them. Oh, look at this corruption. Look at all this great information that the people are just they're gonna lap this stuff up. And guess what? Didn't really happen, did it?
No.
They don't want to touch that stuff. Well, they don't want any part. So I mean, if you talk about corruption.
Well, once the word got out, then it was monkey see, monkey do, and then they did jump on the bandwagon. But he had to find the right people in the first place, and that was probably the tricky part.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. It shouldn't have been a problem finding journalists who actually wanted to cover everything that he brought to them, but he had to search for it.
Journalism's dead art,
and there's still too many who don't want to touch it, which makes you wonder why they don't want to touch it. Maybe they're not allowed to touch any of that information, because guess who can't look at those? Guess who can't read WikiLeaks?
Well, or maybe because
CIA.
it was during the Barack Obama administration, and as we've seen, the media is much less interested in holding Democrat administrations accountable than they are, say, Donald Trump.
Or maybe it's just it's all about it being work. And it's not just waking up in the morning with your coffee and just reading some tweets and
getting a government press release and then regurgitating it word for word.
Exactly.
Which seems to be the case. I'm sure you've seen some of these videos where it's just like one news outlet after the other just parroting exactly the same lines in exactly the same way. They're definitely working off some sort of official press release.
Absolutely.
But I mean, no one wants to make the U.S. government angry. And as far as the U.S. government at least protecting whistleblowers, well, they're prosecuting whistleblowers. There's a reason Edward Snowden left the United States and is being protected by the Russian government. That's not to say the Russian government is a fan of whistleblowers. They're just doing it to, snub the United States. Just like the United States would probably take in a Russian whistleblower.
I don't know about a Russian.
I tend to think they would.
Maybe a Chinese dissident.
I mean, if he made the Russian government angry enough, I tend to think they would take one in.
Yeah, but can you imagine the narrative then? I mean, they've been lambasting the Russians for the last 4, 5, 6 years. Well,
they've been doing that with China as well, though.
No, they're not even touching China.
And let's not forget that it was the Trump administration that went after Julian Assange, even though during the presidential debates, Trump loved WikiLeaks.
Whatever happened to that? Trumpy.
Well, he became president. He had the power, and he didn't want to. He had to go after the journalists.
Yeah, he didn't lock old Hillary up either, did he?
Well, of course not. And I'm shocked that anyone actually believed that he was ever going to lock up Hillary.
But he's the savior. He's been sent by God to save the Republicans.
I heard that, I think it was Vincent said, a former co-host here on Free Talk Live, now the host of Shire Free Media, he's reporting that apparently the MyPillow guy believes that Trump is going to take office again in August.
Oh, he's not alone. There's a whole the QAnon have turned into.
Are they still going?
He's coming back. It's all just a ploy. It's all in the works.
It's like that pastor who keeps making predictions and they keep becoming wrong, but that doesn't turn off his congregation.
It's like end of the world doomsayers. The end of the world's
exactly
coming.
It. Harold Camping, that's his name. What are your thoughts? Is Trump going to take office in August? I, for one, think it's exceedingly unlikely. 603-283-6160. You can weigh in on that or talk about Bitcoin because that's coming up. 603-283-6160.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
When a lunar observatory detects a radio broadcast originating from Proxima Centauri, the nations of Earth discover their first contact with an alien race may also be their last. With the Proximans facing an extinction-level disaster, Earth must choose between sending a ship on a multi-year journey or allowing nature to take its course. Saving Proxima, a hard science fiction thriller by Travis S. Taylor and Les Johnson from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it! You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime.
Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. You're welcome to join the discussion, 603-283-6160, because that's what we do here on Free Talk Live. We empower you to express your opinions on close to 200-ish radio stations, national radio, as well as on the internet, and because of LRN.FM over sub-Saharan Africa, parts of Asia. If you value that, you may consider joining the AMP program. You can find out more about it at amp.freetalklive.com. That's amp.freetalklive.com. It stands for Advertise, Market, and Promote, because it's money that is used strictly to advertise, market, and promote the show. So if you value what we're doing here, and if you value the ideas of liberty reaching a larger audience, the AMP program is the best way to do it. I want to say thank you to Sergeant Oddball, who is tonight's amplifier. He's a silver level amplifier, which means he's paying $5 per month, which conveniently is all we ask. And it's probably the best use of your $5 for getting the message of liberty out there. So Sergeant Oddball, thanks so much for contributing, and we hope you continue doing so. Now, this news made major headlines. Well, I don't know about major headlines, but it was very well talked about in libertarian circles when it first happened. El Salvador came out and said, we're going to accept Bitcoin as legal tender.
Yeah, they covered it at the Bitcoin meeting in Florida.
We talked about it on Free Talk Live.
The convention.
Yep.
Yeah.
There were two in Florida, as it turned out. Yeah. A lot of people weren't happy about the Bitcoin one and how it was sort of, I don't recall exactly what their grievances were. We interviewed some of them at the Porcupine Freedom Festival, and they went and...
So they had like a schism?
Yeah, and they went and just had their own event. The
S-Coin Festival.
So a lot of people were excited about...
If you ain't happy, build your own, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. A lot of people were thrilled about El Salvador accepting Bitcoin as legal tender. I was one of them. It sounded great. But evidently, it's a little bit more insidious than that. They're not just accepting it as legal tender. What exactly are they doing?
Yeah, this is definitely, I think, one of the biggest stories during the Porcupine Freedom Festival Fork Fest weeks that deserves a lot of attention because, I mean, it is historic.
Yeah, I mean, it's big news.
It's big because, you know, when Bitcoin got its start back in 2009, it was created for the purpose of undermining the banks, undermining government money, right? Like taking the money out of the hands of these institutions that have been in control for so many generations and putting money, the power of, you know, money into the hands of the individual. into the hands of the people for the first time in our lifetimes, our grandparents' lifetimes, and beyond that. I mean, Bitcoin is such a big deal, and a lot of people didn't see that at the time, but now they're starting to admit it. Now people are starting to say, okay, Bitcoin's not going anywhere, cryptocurrency's not going anywhere, this stuff is here to stay, and it's becoming more and more valuable over time, it seems like, right? Like over time, generally, the price of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies has trended upwards. It's been down in the last few months, but down from 60,000.
Or down relative to a year ago, where it was, what, 12,000 at this time?
Yeah, something like that. So if even 12,000. But it's up quite a bit, just generally overall. And so to have a government actually take Bitcoin on as legal tender, I don't know if Satoshi Nakamoto, the founder of Bitcoin, ever saw this one coming. I mean, this is a shock.
I assumed something like this would happen at some point, but I thought it would just be, you know, these national, quote, cryptocurrencies, these national digital assets.
Central
like
bank digital currency.
Yeah, like the Chinese government is doing.
Mm-hmm. They aren't cryptocurrencies, which is why you put them in quotes.
Yeah, or what the Venezuelan government did, which is just make one out of thin air, and no one's ever actually gotten any, as far as we can tell. At least the last time we talked about it, there was no evidence that the petro actually existed, which isn't surprising from, you know, the socialist Venezuelan government.
Sure.
But El Salvador, a government being willing or authorizing cryptocurrency or Bitcoin to be used in transactions in their country.
Not only that, but having like the fervor surrounding Bitcoin seeming to infect the politicians. The president of El Salvador is a man named, I believe, Nayib Bukele. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but he put laser eyes on his Twitter account profile. Yeah. So can you explain the laser eyes thing? What that means?
That is, people will change their eyes to lasers using Photoshop or something, and they're supposed to leave them that way until Bitcoin hits $100,000, I believe.
Yeah. People started doing it when it was at like $45,000, $50,000. Now, of course, it's down to $30,000, $35,000, somewhere in that range. So it may be another month or year or 3 years. Who knows? We don't know when it's going to hit $100,000, but I think a lot of people believe that it will. And
it seems like a safe bet at this point.
And that's the whole point behind the laser eyes, is to show support for that. So this guy's, seems like he's gone all in. And of course, this sort of thing gets the Bitcoin people very excited, right? Like, oh my God, a president has put laser eyes on his profile.
So now I can pay my taxes in Bitcoin.
Yeah,
I
but
think
why
you
would
can,
you?
Actually.
Pay Caesar and Caesar's money, not good money.
But this is not surprising to me at all. That I know where this is going. All of the big companies, all of the Elon Musks of the world, all of Wall Street and the big banks they've opened their eyes to this potential power.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they couldn't ignore it forever.
Because they didn't believe in it. The Warren Buffetts of the world still doesn't believe in it.
No, he's going to die anti-Bitcoin.
Correct. But there are a lot of big companies who are like, you know what? There's a lot of power here. There's a lot of money. There's a lot of, potential here.
For sure.
How are we going to control this unless we buy in now and buy it all? If you have it all, if you have all the gold in the world... Yeah, you of
by
course.
definition, they can't buy it all.
Exactly. There's only so much, and then a lot of it's already owned by the Satoshi Nakamoto's of the world.
Right.
But and the who are these Winklevoss twins?
Sure.
But no, this makes sense. And PayPal is dealing in Bitcoin now. But you guess
late last year, yeah.
But what isn't PayPal doing?
Letting you have it.
Having your Bitcoin back. They're going to give you tokens and or USD. They are keeping the Bitcoin.
Right. You can't withdraw PayPal Bitcoin.
Because
it's unclear whether or not PayPal actually has any Bitcoin.
Because that is the power. And these people are not idiots. They know where this is going. They know that it's going to be 100,000 pretty soon.
Well, there are competitors that will allow people to use and purchase cryptocurrency, like Square's Cash App. I mean, but Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, as much as he's anti-free speech, he's very much a proponent of cryptocurrency and Bitcoin in specific.
Yeah, he's a maximalist, I think.
Oh, really?
I think. I could be wrong about that. I don't follow these maximalists very closely, but a lot of the maximalists, now for listeners that don't know, a Bitcoin maximalist is basically a cult member. There's somebody who believes that Bitcoin is the one true cryptocurrency and that no other cryptocurrency has any real value. It's all of the others are speculative, and they're all going to go down the drain someday, and Bitcoin will rule them all. And
that's such a weird perspective to take, man. I cannot understand the worldview through which a maximalist looks at the world.
It's very confusing, especially given that, purportedly one of the benefits of Bitcoin is decentralization. And of course, in order to truly decentralize, you need to have choices in the marketplace. So we should have more than one cryptocurrency. But that aside, I don't think the other cryptos are going to disappear. Maybe some of them are going to. I mean, certainly thousands have failed. But there's also Doge's top 10 right now.
Yeah, but
Doge is super popular, man.
Because it's a
joke.
It's a joke.
But that's what makes it popular.
And the
right?
internet loves
it's
a
fun.
joke. Yeah.
And it's a dog. People love dogs.
So this president, this law got passed, 62 out of 84 votes. It's going into effect within 90 days. And what does that mean? That's where things get ugly.
And we're going to get into that in just a moment. 603-283-6160. More coming up. This is Free Talk Live.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with agristhosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to agristhosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's agristhosting.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. U.S. President Joe Biden says his administration is prioritizing door-to-door outreach to convince reluctant Americans to get vaccinated. It comes after the Biden administration missed its target to have 70% of the U.S. population vaccinated with at least one dose by July 4th. FSN's Nick Harper reports from Washington.
President Biden said it would be the focus of the summer to make it easier for people to get a shot and encourage the unvaccinated to get vaccinated.
As we shift from these centralized mass vaccination sites where we're doing thousands of people a day, we're going to put even more emphasis on getting vaccinated in your community, close to home, conveniently, and a location you're already familiar with.
The government will be offering more door-to-door outreach in communities where vaccination rates are low, in particular in states in the south of the country, as well as setting up vaccination clinics in workplaces. Biden said these efforts would hopefully provide America with a summer of hope and joy.
The European Commission has unveiled a new sustainable finance strategy designed to drive money into climate-friendly investments. The strategy aims to harness banks and markets to make the continent climate neutral by 2050. FSN's Lucy Hoff has more from Brussels.
The strategy laid out by the EU's executive sets out detailed milestones for the financial sector, as well as companies and households, to reach the bloc's climate goals. The aim is to channel private finance into sustainable investments like wind power, solar energy and water stocks. EU member states will be asked by the summer of 2023 to assess how their financial markets contribute to reaching net zero by 2050. Brussels will work alongside the European Central Bank to set intermediate targets for the financial sector. Lucy Hoff, Brussels.
The S&P 500 broke a 7-day winning streak on Tuesday, while the Dow also dropped more than 200 points. It comes amid signs investors are having doubts about the strength of the U.S. economy. FSN's Sarah Walton reports.
Tuesday kicked off a shortened week of trading after the July 4th long holiday weekend, but there was little to celebrate on the markets. The Nasdaq was up 0.2%, but the Dow closed down 0.6%, or 205 points lower. The S&P recovered some earlier losses, but still fell over 0.5%, pulled down by losses for Caterpillar, JP Morgan and Chevron. It comes as ISM Services Index data released on Tuesday showed purchasing in the services sector slowed in June, slumping from a record high in May. Long-term Treasury yields also hit their lowest levels since February, in another sign that the economic recovery from the pandemic could be slowing. Sarah Walton, New York.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, talking about a subject that just really doesn't get old. It just is always interesting and always worth talking about, and that is the rise of cryptocurrency against the state-controlled money that essentially runs the world. In whatever country you happen to be in, chances are you're using a government-backed currency that's probably just sheets of paper with numbers printed on it. Versus Bitcoin, which they can't control. You can't just print a number on Bitcoin and make it worth whatever you want it to be worth. And that's one of the reasons that governments throughout the world generally don't like Bitcoin. And they want to propose their alternative virtual currency that, you know, they can just inflate and create more of so that they can pay for wars and all of their lofty social programs and drug wars and things of that nature. El Salvador, however, has taken the unusual approach of allowing Bitcoin as legal tender.
Allowing would not be the right word. Mandating would be the right word. And that's where this gets ugly. Because
Are they getting rid of whatever currency they use?
The U.S. dollar is the other legal tender in El Salvador. They do not have their own currency, as I understand it.
Ooh, the plot thickens. The U.S. government's not going to like this.
No, they definitely won't. Now, if they had just stopped at allowing, this would have been an incontrovertibly great idea. This would have been really praiseworthy. You know, it's very rare to be able to praise something that a government does because usually it's evil, and in this case, it is. But
I mentioned that on Facebook yesterday as I was just sitting outside smoking. It occurred to me, I can't think of anything that a government ever did that I thought was improved by the government doing it. Whether you look at the Department of Education, Public Safety, Transportation, Roads, Bridges, none of these things have ever been improved by a government.
No, they're incompetent.
Yes, they screw everything up.
And they can't be fired.
And they're inefficient. They take forever.
So yes, this
is a government coming around to cryptocurrency, what, 12 years after Bitcoin was released?
I think this is a power grab. I think this guy has seen the light, and he realizes that he's got to get on top of this now.
Yes.
In order to get as much of it as possible and get as much under control
for him personally,
for the government.
I agree. No, for him personally, I suspect.
Sets up El Salvador as a world power in the future.
They're not saying actually. One of the questions here. I'm looking at Cointelegraph.com and the story about how this bill has passed. It's going into effect. Asked if the country would put Bitcoin in its reserve, he said there were no immediate plans for that. Quote, I don't know. This is evolving very fast. We're not ruling out having Bitcoin in our reserves in the near future, but that's not according to him, the plan at the moment. But you better believe that he's got it, right? This guy,
if his eyes...
he's got laser eyes. He believes it's going to 100,000. He personally has bought into Bitcoin. And now he and his buddies in the government are going to use their power to mandate that everyone in the country accept Bitcoin. Specifically Bitcoin. And the wording in the bill, let me see, I actually think it's quoted here. Quote, every economic agent must accept Bitcoin as payment when offered to him by whoever acquires a good or service.
So that's everyone.
Every single vendor, every merchant, every street salesman, every single person.
And this bill has been passed.
This is good.
So this is law. So that's the law.
This is law. It's going into effect within 90 days as of a couple of weeks ago. So it's still not totally in effect, but they're working. They're rolling it out now. This is happening as we speak.
And it specifies Bitcoin. Regrettably, not a currency that's actually usable like Bitcoin Cash or Dash.
Now, there's an argument that Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin SV are also Bitcoin. Now, it would be interesting to see.
I would make the argument that Bitcoin Cash is Bitcoin and Bitcoin Core is this garbage token.
Yeah, I don't know if it's clear whether or not it's Bitcoin, because all it says is every economic agent must accept Bitcoin as payment. So Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin SV, these are
Bitcoin
both...
Gold? Well, no, No, that is.
I don't know if Bitcoin Gold would. Maybe it would qualify as Bitcoin. It probably
It's
would.
got Bitcoin in the name.
Right. So whether or not those would be Bitcoin or not, maybe those people are going to have to go to court and make that argument at this point if they get arrested for accepting Bitcoin Cash when they were supposed to be accepting BTC.
Or what's going to happen if some street vendor didn't even hear about this. 90 days to get this all up and running, and someone comes and wants to buy a chalupa or whatever, and you're like, and they want to pay in Bitcoin. And I can't help you.
There's already a Vice video that has been floating around online over the last couple of weeks showing one of their reporters attempting to go to a street vendor in El Salvador and purchase something with Bitcoin. And she's like, well, I'm trying to get set up, but I don't have this working yet. I tried to email the company and they haven't gotten back to me yet. And that's where we get into the deeper bad news of all of this.
State-run.
Well, it's bad already. What is the actual technological development level of El Salvador to require your random street vendor to accept cryptocurrency?
They're going to have a state-run exchange where it's going to all the Bitcoin's going to go through them, and they're going to. I bet they're going to charge fees.
I don't think that they've thought it through that far yet, Conan. At this point, they have an official state-approved monopolist called Strike that is going to be handling apparently most, if not all, of the country's Bitcoin transactions, which is on its own a nightmare waiting to happen. One company that is one of these Lightning companies. So for listeners that aren't familiar,
oh god, this does just get worse.
It gets worse. So for listeners that aren't familiar, the Bitcoin maximalist people have been promoting this supposed solution called the Lightning Network for years now.
This is Jack Mallers.
Jack Mahler?
He's the entrepreneur who started it.
I don't know enough about it.
The Lightning Network.
Yeah, I'll take your word for it. But I know there's
the Lightning Network. It's not the same thing.
I don't know. I know there's a group called Blockstream that's behind programming the Lightning Network, and it's this sort of.
Here's the problem: is that they're having to use the Lightning Network in order to make Bitcoin usable. I'm a tech person. I did tech for a decade. The Lightning Network is completely unwieldy for a tech person, much less the average user.
Oh, yeah.
It's so unintuitive.
I've not tried it because I don't want to even get started into it. I'm not even interested enough to bother trying getting into it. But I listened to an interesting episode of Digital Cash Network with Joel Valenzuela, who actually wrote a really interesting piece about this, which I can share with you if you'd like, where he interviewed Chris Pasha. Now, I don't know if you know Chris, but he's a Bitcoin Cash programmer. He's a free stater.
Awesome.
Libertarian guy, great guy. He actually spoke at the Keenvention one year on the Bitcoin panel. And they were both talking about this El Salvador situation. And Joel runs a Lightning node because he wants to know. Like, he wants to be able to talk as an expert about Lightning. He's not a fan of it, but he knows it.
Right.
And Chris is also very familiar with Lightning as a programmer. He knows what's going on with it. And he's done testing and run the numbers and found that the Lightning network is very unreliable. Meaning, and what he found is the more dollar value of Bitcoin that you spend on Lightning, the more of a chance that the transaction will fail. So if you're spending like a cent, it's got like a 99+% chance of going through. If you spend like $1, it's got a lower chance. If you spend $100, it's got like a 50-something% chance. So it's apparently this thing is not ready for prime time in any way, shape, or form. And that's what they're trying to roll out on a country of over 6 million people right now and telling them that they all have to accept this thing. And if you don't know how to run your own Lightning node, which I don't know how to run my own Lightning node, and the average merchant sure as hell isn't going to, then you have to sign up for this Strike company, a private company that's gotten some sort of a special sweetheart deal with the government of El Salvador. And can you imagine, I mean, the onboarding process of trying to onboard an entire nation of people onto one company's database and system? I mean, it's going to be an absolute nightmare, and apparently already is. This is not good for Bitcoin. Forcing people into Bitcoin and then having a terrible user experience, what's likely to be a terrible user experience, that's what's going to happen here.
Never mind the fact that, the Lightning Network reintroduces the trust element into the cryptocurrency world. That's my biggest issue with it. If you have your Bitcoin on a node that becomes untrusted by the rest of the network, well, your Bitcoin's just gone. There's no way to recover it. Any transaction you made, it's just lost.
There's also this confusing thing with the Lightning Network where you have to like open a channel and then the channel has to be funded. And if you don't fund it over, if you fund the channel to $100 worth of Bitcoin, then you can never receive more than $100 worth of Bitcoin or something. It's like very confusing. And why would anyone want to use this thing?
What? Bitcoin Cash would have been such a simpler solution. What are your thoughts? 603-283-6160. This is Free Talk Live.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
On March 16th this year, government task forces violently raided the New Hampshire Bitcoin Embassy, the Mighty Moose Mart, the homes of Aria DiMezzo, Andy and Renee Spinella, Colleen Fordham, a grandmother, and perhaps most relevant, the studios of Free Talk Live. The Crypto Six were arrested. 4 were released on bail conditions, but Ian Freeman was held hostage for 69 days. Rich Paul, also known as Nobody, remains captive. We've consulted attorneys who say no crime even appears to have been committed. But that didn't stop the Joint Thug Task Force from ripping out wires from our broadcast stacks, taking Free Talk Live off the air, resulting in a violation of our and your First Amendment rights. You can visit thecrypto6.com to help, but as importantly, contact other media and tell them about this outrage. This case is likely to set precedent for cryptocurrency use well into your future. Help our fight for liberty and financial freedom at thecrypto6.com.
Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get 1 free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
Bitcoin maximalists, man. They're so hard to talk to. It's so hard to operate anyone who comes talk to anyone who operates from this worldview of dogma and just blind cult devotion to an idea.
That's why it's so hard to talk to people on the left.
Yes, and I mean equally true of people on the right as well. Anyone who's sufficiently dogmatic is just impossible to talk to reason with. And this is Free Talk Live, and we're talking about the El Salvador president who, from what I'm hearing, I'm going to go ahead and say this guy's a Bitcoin maximalist, which means he's one of these people who thinks that Bitcoin is the one true cryptocurrency and all of the others are pretenders destined to fail. One of the things that I overheard while I was at the Porcupine Freedom Festival was from a Bitcoin maximalist who they were talking about some privacy or something like that, and someone brought up Monero, to which the guy said,
the privacy coin.
Yes, Monero, the privacy coin, which fixes a large number, not a large number, but one of Bitcoin's biggest glaring issues. And the guy said, yes, but if Monero loses if they ever figure out how to bypass the shielded transactions or whatever, then Monero loses all of its value. And as I was sitting there listening to it, I was like, well, no, that just puts it on the same technological landscape as Bitcoin. It doesn't make it any inferior. It just makes it no longer superior. But Bitcoin maximalists, man, they come at the world from this weird angle where all other cryptocurrencies are S-coins and are unfit to exist.
Yeah, even though a lot of them have technology that is far more advanced than Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is basically the Model T of cryptocurrencies at this point. It hasn't had a meaningful upgrade in years. They're just coasting.
Yeah, the last one was SegWit, right? Segregated Witness.
Which I couldn't even begin to explain to you what it was. I couldn't
either anymore.
They thought it was going to do something to lower the fees, and look at the fees. And that's number one issue. That's the number one issue here with businesses being told in El Salvador that they have to accept Bitcoin. Like I said, if it was just, hey, this is now legal tender, you can choose to accept it if you want to, have fun. If that was all it was, then that'd be great. But no, it's a mandate that every economic quote-unquote agent must accept Bitcoin as payment when offered to him by whoever acquires a good or service. Now, as Joel Valenzuela, who is also a Free Stater, he's the host of Digital Cash Network that just got on LRN.FM over the weekend, as he points out here in his article that Cointelegraph published, that this leaves just a couple of options for business owners, because this is a mass onboarding of new merchants to accept Bitcoin, whether they want to or not.
And I would speculate that if they're using the Lightning Network, then they're not actually accepting Bitcoin. They're just accepting a token that represents Bitcoin and that, in theory, could be converted into Bitcoin, but isn't actually Bitcoin.
He says this will result in hundreds of thousands of businesses, potentially more, seeking access to a network that already processes about that number across its entire ecosystem in a day. Imagine each merchant receiving a Bitcoin payment every day, doubling the number of transactions on a network that's already past capacity and creating a user experience nightmare. Of course, the intent here is to use the Lightning Network to put as little activity on the Bitcoin blockchain as possible, which means that it's centralized. So Lightning is a centralized, what they call off-chain solution. And that, without getting deeper into the weeds about what that means, he says this might prove difficult. So here's why, with a couple of different potential situations. The first case, what are your options as a business owner in El Salvador? Now you've got to do this thing or else the government will punish you. So you got to do it.
AnyPay.
You can,
I'm sure he doesn't mention it.
That's not an option for Bitcoin. I mean, yeah, you can accept Bitcoin with AnyPay, but then your customer is going to be asked to pay $1, $2, $3, $5 fees in order to send. No one in El Salvador is going to be able to. I don't want to pay a $2 fee to send a Bitcoin transaction if your daily, the amount you make in a day is $5. You are definitely not going to want to pay $1, if even 50 cents, to send a Bitcoin transaction. People just aren't going to do it.
The Lightning Network does lower transaction fees. That much is true until you try to pull your Bitcoin out of the Lightning Network, and then you're back to Bitcoin's normal fees. But while it stays within the Lightning Network, sure.
And remember, you also have to put Bitcoin into the Lightning Network, so there's a fee that you incur there. And then, of course, all the congestion. So he says, let's imagine a case where the majority of businesses onboard to Bitcoin directly, using the network in a decentralized manner. On-chain fees fluctuate wildly, but are frequently in the several dollar range, if not higher. Even if customers are willing to pay those fees for smaller items, the merchant must pay those fees to move the funds eventually, incurring high fees. Because that's the other thing you have to remember. Not only is it a problem when the customer doesn't want to pay a large fee to make a transaction, but each one of those Bitcoin transactions coming into the merchant's wallet when the merchant finally is ready to, let's say, try to cash out the Bitcoin, then they try to go and send that Bitcoin to whatever exchange or method. Maybe the government's going to run one like Conan's suggesting.
I absolutely believe that's going to be the only option. There's going to be a public hub where it was state-run, where basically people are just moving tokens around, and their Bitcoin is in this hub.
That's essentially what the Lightning Network is.
And if they ever want to pull their Bitcoin out and send it, say, to a private wallet, there's going to be huge fees, which is going to be a disincentive to actually move their money out of this hub.
Well, the fees could be exorbitantly high if they're using an HD wallet that constantly generates a new wallet for their address to go to, because each one of those is just going to increase the fee. I mean, the more different wallets that it's coming from, the higher the fee is going to be.
Even if you only have one, as I understand the technology, even if you only have one wallet and you're not generating new ones, having little transactions coming into that, you're still going to have an increased fee because of what they call unspent outputs or something. It gets very confusing and very, engineering to try to explain it. But suffice it to say, the more small transactions you have, the larger and larger the big fee is going to be when you're finally ready to send it out. But that's not true with other cryptocurrencies because their fees are very, very low. But because Bitcoin's network is full, the fees are going insane. So this is not a very good option. A more likely scenario is the business would then onboard to the Lightning Network, which in theory could allow them to receive and send small payments for sub-cent fees. In reality, its structure and complexity would pose significant initial onboarding issues.
Yes, I can only imagine your average street vendor trying to accept payment on the Lightning Network.
Well, that's why they're going to have a centralized solution. We'll get into that.
If I was legally allowed to, and you said, Arya, I want to send you some Bitcoin on the Lightning Network, it would take me at least an hour to make that happen, just to make the possibility happen.
To begin, using Lightning requires opening at least one what they call channel, which necessitates an on-chain transaction, which means a big fee. This in turn triggers the congestion and fee issues mentioned above, as well as maintaining the infrastructure online at all times. Additionally, one cannot receive funds without having them in a channel, meaning you need to either have someone lock up their own funds in a channel to you. Getting confusing, right?
I'm already confused, yes.
Or you have to open a channel yourself to another node with your own money, then send that money through the channel to another source in order to free up inbound liquidity. I have no idea what I just said.
I don't either.
And Joel runs a Lightning node, so he knows what he's talking about here.
It does sound like my experience with the Lightning Network, though. It does.
Right. Confusing as hell.
Yeah. Now, there was no part of the experience that I used, like 2 years ago, maybe, I ordered something online using the Lightning Network simply because it was an option and I wanted to test it out. It was unwieldy, took at least 2 hours for me to do it, and I could have just gone to giftcard.bitcoin.com and bought a gift card for the company I was trying to make the purchase from.
And don't you have like an IT degree?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it's tremendously unwieldy and not user-friendly at all. And there was no part in the journey of doing this that I felt 100% confident that I was doing the correct thing.
So, in short, a business must be either technically competent, not likely in the case of your average vendor who's just trying to sell their wares.
When you consider that 70% of El Salvadoran residents are unbanked.
Yeah.
They're just cash. 70% of them are just cash.
And they must initially possess the number of funds they expect to receive before they have to what they call rebalance a channel, or they must pay a service provider, a centralized service provider. The amount of funding...
That's where Strike comes in.
That's where it's going.
That's the next one.
That's where it's going.
Amount of funding and technical know-how necessary to make this happen may seem doable by upper-class standards, but the chance that most merchants in a developing country can afford a Raspberry Pi and several dollars of extra startup capital just to receive Bitcoin are slim. So that takes us to the second option, which is to use what they call a custodial solution, meaning giving your Bitcoin over to somebody else, in this case a third-party company that the government has anointed with their government magic wand and said, thou shalt use Strike in order to accept Bitcoin Lightning payments. And so they're centralized, they're custodial, and they settle out in fiat currency directly to a bank account, which, as you pointed out, Conan, most of these people do not have.
Mm-hmm.
This certainly solves many issues posed by direct exposure to Bitcoin itself because of all the fees and such, though not all, and additionally it introduces new ones. First, if a service like Strike actually does open Lightning channels for all users, then each new user onboarded represents one on-chain transaction.
Though this is fewer than in the previous case, it still represents X transactions, or the entirety of Bitcoin's on-chain capacity for Y days straight, meaning onboarding every single person in this entire country of over 6 million people and all of the necessary Bitcoin transactions and customer service issues and all the problems that come with that.
More coming up because it gets worse. So
nightmare.
Stay tuned. This is Free Talk Live.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. U.S. President Joe Biden says his administration is prioritizing door-to-door outreach to convince reluctant Americans to get vaccinated. It comes after the Biden administration missed its target to have 70% of the U.S. population vaccinated with at least one dose by July 4th. FSN's Nick Harper reports from Washington.
President Biden said it would be the focus of the summer to make it easier for people to get a shot and encourage the unvaccinated to get vaccinated.
As we shift from these centralized mass vaccination sites where we're doing thousands of people a day, we're going to put even more emphasis on getting vaccinated in your community, close to home, conveniently, and a location you're already familiar with.
The government will be offering more door-to-door outreach in communities where vaccination rates are low, in particular in states in the south of the country, as well as setting up vaccination clinics in workplaces. Biden said these efforts would hopefully provide America with a summer of hope and joy.
The European Commission has unveiled a new sustainable finance strategy designed to drive money into climate-friendly investments. The strategy aims to harness banks and markets to make the continent climate neutral by 2050. FSN's Lucy Hoff has more from Brussels.
The strategy laid out by the EU's executive sets out detailed milestones for the financial sector, as well as companies and households, to reach the bloc's climate goals. The aim is to channel private finance into sustainable investments like wind power, solar energy and water stocks. EU member states will be asked by the summer of 2023 to assess how their financial markets contribute to reaching net zero by 2050. Brussels will work alongside the European Central Bank to set intermediate targets for the financial sector. Lucy Hoff, Brussels.
The S&P 500 broke a 7-day winning streak on Tuesday, while the Dow also dropped more than 200 points. It comes amid signs investors are having doubts about the strength of the U.S. economy. FSN's Sarah Walton reports.
Tuesday kicked off a shortened week of trading after the July 4th long holiday weekend, but there was little to celebrate on the markets. The Nasdaq was up 0.2%, but the Dow closed down 0.6%, or 205 points lower. The S&P recovered some earlier losses, but still fell over 0.5%, pulled down by losses for Caterpillar, JP Morgan and Chevron. It comes as ISM Services Index data released on Tuesday showed purchasing in the services sector slowed in June, slumping from a record high in May. Long-term Treasury yields also hit their lowest levels since February, in another sign that the economic recovery from the pandemic could be slowing. Sarah Walton, New York.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, continuing our look at the situation in Afghanistan as the day approaches when all US and NATO troops will have left the country. We've heard a lot over the last few days about the Taliban retaking territory, especially in the north of the country, and the fears of many Afghans, especially women, about what will be entailed if the Taliban retake control of the entire country. But have they changed over the last 20 years? Frank Ledwidge is a former British military intelligence officer who served in both Afghanistan and Iraq.
I think part of them have changed. They realise that the political attraction of not allowing kites and music is limited. They still cleave, or apparently, to their strict interpretations of the Sharia, which is bad news, obviously, for women and indeed everybody else. Let's remember the Taliban isn't necessarily one big amorphous, or rather even directed unit. There's been a civil war in Afghanistan almost without stop.
Hi, I'm Montel Williams. Most of you know me as a talk show host, but I'm also an author, actor, single father of 4, a fitness writer, avid snowboarder, and I'm also a medical marijuana patient. Like many of the million people who are living with multiple sclerosis, I'm in pain every single day. And sometimes my nerves are so raw that if you brushed up against me in an elevator, I'd scream. I can't sleep at night from the pain, and sometimes the spasms in my legs are so intense they will wake me up throughout the night. I've tried the strongest prescription medications available, and I'm gonna tell you, they do not work. In fact, they leave me in a stupor, and most of the time, it's impossible to even live your life. Now, I've tried medical marijuana, and I'm gonna tell you something, it works. If you'd like more information about medical marijuana, you can contact the Marijuana Policy Project at mpp.org or call 1-877-JOIN-MPP.
After visiting his girlfriend of 2 years at her workplace to deliver an unexpected threat for Valentine's Day, violent and controlling boyfriend Matthew Strachan spoke to The Onion about remaining a devoted and committed abuser.
On a special day like today, I like doing something extra malicious for Mallory, just so she knows that I've been thinking about hurting her. I mean, you should have seen the look on her face when I came and surprised her at work today. It was so great. I mean, she had no idea I was going to come to her office to belittle and frighten her. I mean, I wanted to do it in front of her friends to really humiliate her.
Strachan added that while he doesn't always get a chance to inflict harm on Mallory, he tries his best each and every day to create an environment of sustained physical and emotional abuse to leave her feeling completely alienated and powerless.
Just wait till she sees what I have in store for her tonight. I love Valentine's Day.
For more on this story, check this week's Onion Review.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160 if you want to take control of the airwaves. That's 603-283-6160. With you in the studio tonight, it's Aria.
It's Ian.
And Conan.
And I got a little thrown off there because our clock actually ended up being off again, despite being set to automatic once again. And it was off by about 4.5 seconds. So I was sitting here, and then suddenly there was some music. I was like, oh, God, that's not right. But everything's all set. And at least here, everything's all set. In El Salvador, things aren't as cheery and wonderful. Evidently, the El Salvador government is requiring its people, its subjects, so to speak, to accept Bitcoin, except in order to do that feasibly because of Bitcoin's high transaction fees, they have to take it off chain using something like the Lightning Network, which seems to be, the dominant approach to taking things off chain, off of the Bitcoin blockchain, so that it's cheaper. You don't have to pay the transaction fees that
I
Bitcoin
wouldn't call
involves.
it dominant because I don't know anyone who uses it.
Chris Friedman uses
Chris Friedman.
it.
Okay, one guy.
Yeah, one guy. But I mean, who's their competition?
Every other cryptocurrency out there.
Okay,
under the
fair
sun.
point. But if you want to use BTC or Bitcoin Core, however you wish to characterize it, then and not pay unreasonably high transaction fees, then really the Lightning Network is the way to go. But really, the best way of doing
then I'm
this...
not really using Bitcoin. I'm using somebody else's off-chain solution that's centralized. I'm not actually using a real
No, you're using a
decentralized
token that in theory represents Bitcoin, and that in theory one day you could withdraw back onto the chain and actually have Bitcoin. All of that's theoretical because it's at the mercy of a third party. Even if you have your own private keys for your Lightning wallet, you're still at the mercy of whatever nodes you establish your connections to. And
whatever that means. I still don't understand how that works.
I've been through this process. I've spent Bitcoin on the Lightning Network, and I have no idea what this dude just said.
Yeah, about having to open channels and fund the channel to the amount that you want to receive, because apparently the merchants will have to lock up some Bitcoin in these channels in order to even receive Bitcoin from people. But how do they have the Bitcoin in the first place in order to do that? If they don't have a bank account in order to buy I mean, it's just a cluster F already.
It is. And there were so many easier ways they could have gone about this. Like, hey, if you want to accept cryptocurrency, we're fine with that. And then people could have looked into it and installed their own wallet and just generated a QR code within the wallet for whatever amount the item being sold is worth. And then someone could have just scanned it.
Right, but I think they got greedy and they said, oh, well, if we mandate that every single person who could possibly do business in El Salvador has to accept Bitcoin, that'll bring the price up. Well, yeah, maybe if it actually went well and everybody was happy and, it was smooth, but this is going to be an absolute nightmare.
Yes, and user experience is extremely important. Evidently, 6 million-ish people in El Salvador are about to have their first experience with Bitcoin, and the experience they're going to have is awful. And the tech support level that they're going to get from this company, Strike, is going to be equally as bad because there's no way a company that does Lightning Network transactions is ready to take on 6 million new users.
And that's the point that Joel Valenzuela makes here at Cointelegraph when he talks about, well, on one hand, you got the option of accepting Bitcoin directly, which is confusing, and it's expensive due to all the fees. But you want to get into, as far as doing Lightning, it gets really confusing if you're going to run your own node. So you can look to a company that the government has anointed called Strike. And
is that spelled like S-T-R-Y-K?
No, it's actually spelled correctly, S-T-R-I-K-E.
I'm surprised by that.
Right. So if Strike does open Lightning channels for all users, then each new user onboarded represents one on-chain transaction. So that means they're going to be adding a lot of new transactions to a network that's already full and already we're paying ridiculous fees. So the fees are going to go up as it gets more and more and more busy. But
for those who weren't counting, that's 6 million Bitcoin transactions.
Lest we forget, Strike itself needs to scale in addition to, well, no, not all 6 million may be like business owners or whatever, but it's still going to be a lot, right?
Oh, yeah, good point. They would have employees or something like that.
Lest we forget, Strike itself needs to scale in addition to the network itself, and a fledgling company will certainly face growing pains when jumping to onboarding an entire country's merchants.
Just the idea of that is absurd on its face. You're going to onboard an entire country onto your platform.
In 90 days, exactly.
Does anyone remember the numerous times when exchanges like Coinbase went offline entirely when faced with an influx of new customers?
I was actually about to mention that. Because, yes, a company as large as Coinbase.
The biggest of Bitcoin companies. I mean, it's huge.
Yeah, they are. I believe they're the largest cryptocurrency exchange in the world.
Probably. They did an IPO, I think, recently. They went
did,
public.
and it was tremendously successful. Yeah. They made a lot of money.
Yeah.
And they hold a lot of cryptocurrency for people. But even then, when Bitcoin hit the 17,000 or whatever it was back in 2017, Coinbase ground to a halt. They weren't able to handle the influx of new users.
And it wasn't just them. A lot of the exchanges out there put a freeze on new user signups. They were saying, whoa, we're growing too fast. We we have to freeze signups because we want to give you, our new customers actual customer service, and we can't hire customer service reps fast enough to satisfy all of the people that want to sign up. So we're just going to close the doors. That's literally what a bunch of these big exchanges did. They're like, no more. We can't take any more.
I can't imagine that they had much choice. I mean, each one of these new users is new to the space. They're new to cryptocurrency. They heard about it on
what
the
the hell
news.
they're doing.
Yeah, and probably at least 1 in 3 of them is going to need some kind of tech support.
Yeah, hand-holding.
Yeah, and that's just take 500,000 of those.
Right. And remember, we're talking about several, if not more than several, major exchanges slowing and or shutting down their new signups entirely.
Saying, no, we don't want to take any more money from people.
Yeah. And now we're talking instead now in El Salvador about one company.
One company that I've never heard of prior to tonight. I mean, they are a Lightning Network company, and that's not really my space, but I had heard of Coinbase prior to 2017.
Yeah. Additionally, he says, let's not forget the entire reason this was thought of as helpful to begin with. Many Salvadorans are unbanked. Conan, you said 70% of them?
Yeah, that's why Article 7 has to happen, according to this president. He's like, there's no other way. We have to mandate, we have to force these people to use this program because otherwise they're not on board already. So what is the other option? And that is why it's mandatory.
He says...
he could let them use goldbacks.
There's a lot of other... He can use.
They would probably prefer that.
He could use other cryptocurrencies that are easy to use.
Sure, but I'm thinking about the perspective of the average street merchant who, 70% of them don't even have bank accounts, so they're not accepting debit cards or anything like that. Mm-hmm. They prefer cold hard cash. So if you want to give them something that's actually valuable, that they can use, that doesn't require an internet connection or an internet connected device.
Yeah. Except is this president and his crony corporations is going to run this new hub. He's going to be able to control that. He's not going to be in control of some goldbacks that are floating around.
What if I'm an old guy selling it, out of my little vending cart, and I've never even had a cell phone? I don't see any need for having these newfangled technologies. I've got my dollars. I can take cash in and sell hot dogs or whatever, or churros.
And according to this article, every citizen of El Salvador is going to get a $30 wallet.
That's true. Yeah.
So that's how they're going to fund the Lightning Network.
So maybe they're going to get a phone too.
I don't know.
So wait a minute. This means the El Salvadoran government 30 USD's worth of Bitcoin?
Yep.
Of Bitcoin. Yeah, going to anybody. Is it everybody, period, or anyone who wants it?
Everyone who wants the new wallet, which is called Chivo.
The new government wallet.
See, if I was legally allowed to, I would install that wallet just for the $30 worth of free crypto, right?
Maybe we could figure a way to get in there.
I think you're probably going to have to show your El Salvadoran ID in order to get approved.
Well, I can't do it anyway.
But many El Salvadorans are unbanked, and they have issues getting access to key financial services. In a world where most businesses accept Bitcoin through just those financial services, it faces the same challenges which prevented them from being included before. How many El Salvadorans lack the necessary documentation to even open a bank account? How will they be able to instantly convert to fiat currency without one? Those problems will not only still be present under a mass adoption scenario, but they will be amplified by unfamiliar infrastructure and nascent services.
How many of these guys even have IDs?
That's a good question.
If they don't have an ID, how can they prove they're an El Salvador resident? There's so many issues with this. More coming up about it. This is Free Talk Live.
Brute force, intransigent defiance, adamantine will. These are the hallmarks of the AI tank. These gigantic machines have the firepower of an army, but they also have their own sense of honor and duty. When the world breakers arrive, battle will be joined, planets will shake, and war and peace will never be the same again. World Breakers. Stories from David Weber, Larry Correia, and more. Available August 3rd from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here. And I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit shiresociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at shiresociety.com. That's shiresociety.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. Are you a cryptocurrency advocate? The Crypto Tip is the ideal outreach tool to help new people discover cryptocurrency. It's a printable business card-sized tip that you can give to service providers, preferably in addition to a good cash tip. When the server scans the QR code, it'll bring up an explanation of cryptocurrency, how to install a wallet, and allow them to claim the tip. If they don't claim the crypto, you get your tip refunded to you after a time period you specify. Plus, if they do claim the tip, you get an email alert. Create as many tips as you want at cryptotip.org. That's cryptotip.org.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. You can take control of the airwaves and talk about anything that's on your mind. 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. With you tonight, it's Aria.
It's Ian.
And Conan.
And I want to change the subject here to talk about pornography, something near and dear to my heart.
All right.
So, according to Fox News, the adult streaming service XTube is closing as its parent company faces mounting scrutiny.
I take it this is a Pornhub competitor?
It is.
Okay.
XTube, a prominent pornographic streaming platform, or a streaming platform. Okay, yeah. When I think of streaming now, I think of live streaming for whatever reason, because those two terms are just so ingrained in my mind.
Well,
but
there's porn girls or whatever, cam girls. They do live streams, right?
There certainly are.
Yeah.
But when they say streaming here, they just mean like a video streaming platform.
Okay.
It's shutting down as its parent company faces mounting accusations that it facilitated sex trafficking on its subsidiary sites. The platform announced this week that it was disabling video and photo uploads as it prepared to close down on September 5th. The exact reason for the shuttering is unclear, but anti-trafficking advocates have heralded the closure as a victory for their movement. MindGeek, which is XTube's parent company, told Fox Business on Tuesday that it believed its users would be better served on one of its other platforms. Like any tech company, we are constantly... That needs more information. What other platforms
I'm looking right now.
could there be? So Xtube has always had a dedicated but small community, and we believe that its users and creators will be better served on one of our existing platforms, where they will be able to take advantage of wider reach and increased visibility.
According to Wikipedia's MindGeek entry, they operate many popular pornographic websites, including video sharing services Pornhub, RedTube, and YouPorn. So
MindGeek also owns the competitor of Pornhub.
Apparently.
I wish I could be surprised by that.
Yeah.
So I'm curious now what niche Xtube actually served that was distinct from what Pornhub was doing.
It might have been something that they acquired, right? Like these sites may not
and
have
just didn't close down.
Yeah, they may have, one of those things where it's a successful company comes in, they offer a bunch of money to whoever started Xtube
and intentionally close it.
Yeah, buy out their competitor.
It's redundant.
Yeah.
They're not the only ones. I don't know, but I've heard that OnlyFans has also begun removing pornographic content.
Wait, isn't that the whole point of that site?
That was the whole point of it. But, now that they're popular, they're trying to distance themselves from the thing that made them popular in the first place. Started, I don't know if it's true or not. I've just seen that around. Started in 2008, the platform is just one of many of MindGeek's pornographic streaming services, which includes the highly visited site Pornhub. While Pornhub has long faced criticism, the backlash seemed to intensify last year when the New York Times published a story accusing it of monetizing child rapes, among other things.
I remember hearing about that.
I remember hearing about it, but I don't remember what led to it or what caused people to say that or any of the details about it. I just remember the allegation.
Weren't people using it as an alternative for YouTube?
They were.
Just for uploading normal videos, you mean?
Yeah, because you actually have freedom of speech on Pornhub, strangely enough. I mean,
maybe you do, maybe you don't.
Well, that's true. I haven't tried. Well, I mean, we haven't tried to put any of our medical misinformation videos on there, but in theory, it would be safer there than it would be on YouTube for whatever that's worth.
Yep.
While Pornhub has got over that. The ensuing controversy included Visa suspending its payments and MasterCard severing its ties with the company, after which Pornhub began, if I recall correctly, accepting cryptocurrency as payment.
Yeah. Now, I remember we talked about this, last year when it was in the news, and the story was that, and I'm looking at the Wikipedia page here, the allegations were basically that Pornhub / MindGeek was profiting from so-called child sex trafficking or child sexual abuse material. The idea being that if you're running a website that just allows anybody with a VPN connection to upload product to the website, there's no real way to prevent some sort of illegal video from being uploaded to that website, right? Unless you've got, I don't know, there's probably some sort of service you can hire to do that. But if you don't have that system installed and you're just letting anybody upload whatever porn they want to, and then,
that seems risky at minimum.
It's slapping advertisements on the front and the end of some sort of child porn video, and then they're making money off of it. That's where these lawsuits came from. And so what the news had been was that Pornhub was going to start requiring all uploaders to basically go through a know your customer process and show ID and become a sort of known producer, that they weren't just going to allow anybody anywhere to upload anymore. That was what the news was.
Yeah, and all unverified videos, that's it, anyone who uploaded a video that didn't want to go through that process had their videos purged.
Blocked.
Resulting in 2/3 of Pornhub's content being removed.
That's huge.
Yeah. That's 2/3 of their content.
Right.
People
Okay,
didn't just want to jump through those hoops.
They keep throwing around anti-sex trafficking, but I'm looking at the lawsuits. Last month, 34 women filed a lawsuit against MindGeek and its Pornhub site, alleging they had exploited the women by hosting content without their consent.
But that's not Pornhub's fault. I mean, they should do the right thing and delete that content, but they're not legally responsible for it. That's the uploader.
Exactly, but they keep throwing around sex trafficking.
And I've got news for people.
Almost like they're talking about people who have been slaved from another country, brought over in a trunk, and they've been living in a dungeon for the last 6 months.
Is that what they're saying? Is that people who have actually been sex trafficked are having pornographic videos made of them and uploaded to Pornhub? Because I can't imagine that whoever it would be sex trafficking those individuals would want to take the risk of putting their victims on the internet. Usually when we've heard about sex trafficking going on, it's usually something where they're trying to keep that person hidden. They're trying to keep...
Yeah, on an island somewhere with, with a crazy-looking blue palace.
Well, I mean, maybe on an island, but generally, like, they have a certain group of people that they market their sex slaves to, and the whole point is you don't put them out there on Front Street so the cops who are looking for them can find them. Right. You wouldn't want to put them on Pornhub so you can make what? I mean, what kind of money can you even make on these videos? What's the revenue?
It can't be a lot, right? And Pornhub's probably going to take the significant portion of it.
Yeah.
So I have no idea.
I'm starting to think that this is just upset girlfriends or boyfriends uploaded their personal sex tapes, and now they're getting back at them.
And that's part of the issue. I mean, what people need to understand, what they should have learned as children, but evidently didn't, is that you never put anything in writing that you don't want the whole world to read. You never take any photographs that you don't want the whole world to see, and you never record any videos that you don't want the whole world to see, because any of that could be found by anyone. And you may think you trust your boyfriend with your life. You shouldn't.
And it might not get uploaded by your ex-boyfriend, but I guarantee your grandkids are going to be digging it out of your trunk 80 years from now when you're an old grandma, and they're going to be like, "What's this, mommy?"
Or if you're like that senator or politician or whoever, Kellyanne Conway, evidently her 16-year-old daughter's breasts ended up published on Twitter.
Oh yeah, what a wreck!
And it was supposedly Kellyanne Conway who had done it. So I mean, just general advice. Don't write anything down. Don't take any photographs. Don't record any videos that you don't want the entire world to see.
Go out in the woods and live off grid. That's the only way.
Yeah, or just, don't consent to the photo or the video in the first place. More coming up. There's a story about prison, comparing the U.S. prison system to Communist China, Nazi Germany, and Soviet Russia. And we're going to get into that. 603-283-6160. This is Free Talk Live.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Carl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. U.S. President Joe Biden says his administration is prioritizing door-to-door outreach to convince reluctant Americans to get vaccinated. It comes after the Biden administration missed its target to have 70% of the U.S. population vaccinated with at least one dose by July 4th. FSN's Nick Harper reports from Washington.
President Biden said it would be the focus of the summer to make it easier for people to get a shot and encourage the unvaccinated to get vaccinated.
As we shift from these centralized mass vaccination sites where we're doing thousands of people a day, we're going to put even more emphasis on getting vaccinated in your community, close to home, conveniently, and a location you're already familiar with.
The government will be offering more door-to-door outreach in communities where vaccination rates are low, in particular in states in the south of the country, as well as setting up vaccination clinics in workplaces. Biden said these efforts would hopefully provide America with a summer of hope and joy.
The European Commission has unveiled a new sustainable finance strategy designed to drive money into climate-friendly investments. The strategy aims to harness banks and markets to make the continent climate neutral by 2050. FSN's Lucy Hoff has more from Brussels.
The strategy laid out by the EU's executive sets out detailed milestones for the financial sector, as well as companies and households, to reach the bloc's climate goals. The aim is to channel private finance into sustainable investments like wind power, solar energy and water stocks. EU member states will be asked by the summer of 2023 to assess how their financial markets contribute to reaching net zero by 2050. Brussels will work alongside the European Central Bank to set intermediate targets for the financial sector. Lucy Hoff, Brussels.
The S&P 500 broke a 7-day winning streak on Tuesday, while the Dow also dropped more than 200 points. It comes amid signs investors are having doubts about the strength of the U.S. economy. FSN's Sarah Walton reports.
Tuesday kicked off a shortened week of trading after the July 4th long holiday weekend, but there was little to celebrate on the markets. The Nasdaq was up 0.2%, but the Dow closed down 0.6%, or 205 points lower. The S&P recovered some earlier losses, but still fell over 0.5%, pulled down by losses for Caterpillar, JP Morgan and Chevron. It comes as ISM Services Index data released on Tuesday showed purchasing in the services sector slowed in June, slumping from a record high in May. Long-term Treasury yields also hit their lowest levels since February, in another sign that the economic recovery from the pandemic could be slowing. Sarah Walton, New York.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, where occasionally we mislead you about what we're going to be talking about when we come back from a break, because as we discovered during that break, there's actually more going on with MindGeek and some of these allegations against the various porn sites that it runs, particularly Pornhub, which I think is probably the largest porn site in the world. I actually don't use Pornhub, so I don't know a whole lot about it. It's not where I prefer to go for pornography, but hey, most people do. So...
Go on.
I've used it in the past, but it's not where I go to look at pornography.
Did you have to specify with your probationer which channels you would be
I did.
going to?
Yeah, it's a whitelist system, man. If I wanted to look at porn, I had to specify exactly what website I wanted to go to.
Huh.
Yeah. Good times. It actually took me a really long time to ask that because it just wasn't actually a priority to me. But I finally got around to it. I asked several other questions about other things at the same time.
Kind of slipped it in there to make it a little...
No, not at all. I made it a point to be like, hey, look, I want to watch porn, and you, employee of the federal government, are going to have to give consideration to whether or not I'm allowed to watch porn.
And how did they handle it?
Like when I asked for permission to use like Hulu, not Hulu specific, but something like Tubi, I had to describe, or Spotify, I had to describe in detail what the site was and what purposes I wanted to use it for. So I went into graphic detail about what I wanted to use this porn site for.
Oh my.
Well, hopefully
I never stop trolling, man.
Hopefully they're not reading those documents during the case and say, oh, by the way, and we need to highlight who this person is. This is what they wanted on their time off. And then they start going into great detail with all the graphic
I have no objection to that.
Well.
But anyway, these lawsuits against Pornhub and MindGeek, they've been piling up for several years. They've been accused of, making money off of child sex trafficking and, according to Fox News, before I closed it out a minute ago, things like misogyny, domestic violence, and all sorts of horrific things that I don't know. I mean, as I said, I have used Pornhub in the past. I don't know where these people are finding this. I've never seen anything like that on Pornhub. Maybe you have to go looking for it, and I don't go looking for it, but it's still not something that's there and easy to find, at the very least.
I was there today. I didn't see anything. I will say that it's getting harder and harder to, because I like good old fashioned.
Okay.
And some of that stuff is just getting
like 70s old fashioned.
No, just good straight up,
just normal
like partners.
Okay.
None of this nasty, gnarly stuff that just seems, to be taken over the. I can understand why young millennials, young Zoomers can't get it up around a woman anymore. When you hear these stories of these youngins and they get into a relationship and they can't have sex, they can't get it up, And it's like, well, yeah, what have you been watching for the last 15 years? Some just gnarly nastiness. Do you want her to pee on you? Is that going to get you up?
God, we can't talk about that.
I mean, that's where it's gone.
Yeah, I would almost suggest a dump on that, but it's too late, I think, at this point. We can't get descriptive in that kind of way. So, and so that's not the point of this story. It's to talk about the lawsuit involved here. Then there's been multiple lawsuits. Apparently, this one is another one against MindGeek, the owner of Pornhub, and apparently several other websites. There's another company called Girls Do Porn, or at least there was, and they're involved in this as well. So according to Vice.com, they filed 40 so-called victims of sex trafficking operation Girls Do Porn have filed a lawsuit against MindGeek for a litany of accusations, including knowingly benefiting from Girls Do Porn videos on Pornhub and failing to moderate the images circulating rampantly on its network of tube sites. In total, the lawsuit's demanding more than $40 million in damages, at least $1 million per plaintiff, as well as the money that MindGeek earned from hosting and promoting the videos and the legal fees.
Now, I'm suddenly curious what the competitor OnlyFans has actually done to eliminate sex trafficking, because these are, as far as I'm aware, it's just users creating and uploading their own content. There's no middleman or anything like that, and I don't think most of it's actually that explicit.
But aren't they identifying those people because they're paying them, right? So therefore they have to have a bank account or something.
Yeah.
I mean,
what I'm saying is that's going to cause a reduction in sex trafficking as a result. Because it's open market. It's being done out in the public. There's none of this shadiness of people trying to break the law or anything like that. It's just someone openly doing a thing that society generally frowns upon. But because of that, because they're doing it out in the open, there are checks and balances. Hey, we do have to see your ID. You do have to have a bank account that we're sending this money to. And presumably it needs to match up with the name of the account owner of the OnlyFans who's uploading.
But the argument behind these lawsuits is that it was done without their consent, or they got into something that didn't.
Or that they were defrauded into consenting. And
an OnlyFans girl, she basically, when she creates an account, or whoever creates an account,
she's probably got to show ID.
Basically, that's their consent right there. And if she's plugging in her bank account, I mean, there you go.
It just seems weird that Pornhub would allow people to upload videos without submitting any sort of identity in the first place.
Well, now they have to, as of, I believe, December or something like that. At the end of 2020, that Pornhub has changed its business model. You said they cut out 75% of their videos. Well, at the same time, they made it so everybody that is going to upload has to be identified.
That's not a terrible decision. To protect their own.
If it's going to protect their butt from lawsuits, it's what they have to do to stay in business at this point. But
so I guess good on them for that.
They're still being sued because apparently they were involved with this Girls Do Porn to some extent. Now, they weren't the producers. That was this company called Girls Do Porn. But they knowingly were involved, apparently, to some extent with this company. And so because Pornhub's a big site, owned by a big company that got a lot of revenue, you got to sue those people, right? Like you sue somebody, you sue the people with the money.
Right.
And so filed with the U.S. District Court in the Southern District of California, the 43-page complaint details the suffering of these alleged victims of Girls Do Porn and claims that each of the 40 plaintiffs became suicidal, all 40, because of the harassment they endured when their videos spread non-consensually across the internet, including across MindGeek's network of porn sites.
Are they alleging that these videos were so widespread that like people were coming up to them on the streets and harassing them? Because that doesn't happen with, paid porn actresses.
They're alleging there was some level of harassment in real life. I don't know if that means it was just messages they received online or actual physical encounters with people. One girl said, quote, "I was scammed. This company lied to me about this being on the internet. They told me it would only be available on DVD in Australia. My work friends and family all know, and the very link is being sent around. I want to just die," she said.
So they said it was going to circulate on DVD in Australia, and she's so new to the internet that she didn't know that people rip DVDs to the internet of pornography all the time.
Yeah, how could you not know that? I mean, how could you not know that even if the whole DVD wasn't ripped, that somebody could, screenshot or do various other ways of taking a clip out and uploading that?
Yeah, I mean, for all I know, this company actually kept its word and only distributed it on DVD in Australia. Thus far, I have no reason not to believe that.
Well, they didn't. They did upload it apparently to their own Girls Do Porn channel on sites like Pornhub.
Okay. Well, I wouldn't have taken their word for it anyway.
No, God, no.
Because it sounds like a lie. But, even if they had done that, it still almost certainly would have ended up on the internet.
The complaint claims that as early as 2009 and definitely by fall of 2016, MindGeek knew that Girls Do Porn was coercing and intimidating models into having sex on camera. It also places much of the blame for the victim's harm on MindGeek, presenting several claims from models themselves that Pornhub failed to take down videos, even when they were reported to Pornhub and pleaded with the company to remove them. One of the Jane Doe plaintiffs alleges she contacted Pornhub through its video takedown portal, writing, "I'm going to kill myself if this stays up here. I was scammed and told this was only going to be on DVDs in another country. Please, I'm begging you. Please, I'll pay."
Did they take it down?
Days later, she wrote to Tube8, another MindGeek site, and then...
So she wasn't going to kill herself. She was just being dramatic. She was trying to be manipulative.
Yeah.
Trying to... emotionally extort these people to bending their knee to her will because she was going to, quote, kill herself if they didn't.
Please, this is ruining my life.
She's as bad as they are.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
There's no real winners in this situation. No real good people to look at here. I mean, I don't know if you said it on the air, Arya, but why not just own it? You wanted to perform in this video for whatever reason. Maybe they were paying you. I presume they paid these people for it, because why else would they do it? Why don't you just own what you did?
I don't know what... I don't see what their problem is. 603-283-6160. Maybe you can explain it.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, we can have a free market, a truly free market. Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
If you're looking for work, there's a piece of paper more important than your resume. It's the cover letter attached if you're snail mailing, or the email to which you attach your resume. Make it 4 short paragraphs. Paragraph 1, say that you're applying for work. The person you're sending to gets a ton of mail about all sorts of things. If you have a password, that's your first sentence. Tom Nelson tells me you and I should meet. Paragraph 2, what you do and how that relates to the opening. Be as specific as possible. Paragraph 3, why you want this particular job. I'm originally from Boston, so I know the market well. I have family and friends in the area, so this would be a homecoming for me. Paragraph 4, unless the job posting stipulates no calls, and I will call you to follow up. Thank you in advance for your time. From survivalspeech.com, I'm Holland Cook.
Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover springs her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com. Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live with Arya, Ian, and Conan, and we've been talking about heroes and villains all night. And here we have a story where there just are no heroes. Everyone seems to be a villain in some way or another. There just aren't any sympathetic characters in this particular narrative, which is these 40-something girls attempting to sue MindGeek because a company lied to them and they recorded some porn, and They were told it wasn't going to end up on the internet, and then it did, and Pornhub was decided it ended up on, and somehow that makes Pornhub responsible for all of this. And, it sounds horrible until you realize that these girls were being extremely manipulative in how they were going about this thing, threatening to kill themselves if the content wasn't removed. Like a 13-year-old girl.
They were being manipulative, but they were also being manipulated by the porn producers. In this case, Girls Do Porn. I mean,
but they were also stupid to think that they could somehow record pornography that was going to be sold to someone and that it would not end up on the internet.
Oh, no doubt. These were definitely some stupid, gullible girls here in this particular case. I mean, how they didn't know, what might possibly be done with this footage, or trust these slimy dudes who put
it's the
ads
classic
on
story of, hey, girl, I hear you want to be a model.
Yeah, that's what this is. Trusting slimy dudes who put ads on Craigslist. According to Wikipedia, this company, Girls Do Porn, would put up fake modeling websites such as Begin Modeling, Modeling Gigs, Modeling Work, and Bubblegum Casting, advertising them on Craigslist in college towns across America and Canada. They requested applicants of college age, and then once they, got the applicants, the men who were running the company used fake names when dealing with the women, which again, it's not uncommon for people in the porn business to use stage names, right? So that's not unusual.
Certainly.
They would then contact the women who had applied and tell them the job wasn't actually modeling, but having sex on camera. They claimed the footage would only be used.
Now, this was before they'd ever even met the women. Presumably, they just set some pictures, some selfies of themselves online or whatever, some modeling they had done in the past. So they haven't even met at this point. So the dudes were up front pretty early on, not as early on as they could have been, but still pretty early on.
Well, they might not have been entirely upfront, and there's more about that here in a moment. But they claim the footage would only be used for DVDs sold to private buyers and independent video stores in Australia, New Zealand, and South America, and would never be released online or in the United States in any form.
This is a company that has already lied to you once. They presented themselves as a modeling company. As soon as you applied, they went, "Oh yeah, we're not actually a modeling company. We do porn." That's your red flag number one. They've already lied to you about what they do.
They were offered a fair amount of money, between $2,000 and $6,000 for 30. What they were told would be 30 minutes of filming. Now the women claim later that it was more like 5 to 7 hours. And some say they didn't even get paid or weren't paid what they were told they were going to be paid. They were told they would have 5 sexual positions that would last between 5 and 7 minutes apiece. Women involved report frequent and persistent contact from the company before they agreed. Then they would be put into contact with a reference girl. They were hired to lie to the women and conceal information in order to convince them to agree to the job.
So see, the company was also evil here. Also a villain, for sure. Plenty of fraud and deceit going on here.
So they would actually be flown to San Diego, California. Travel expenses would be paid for, accommodation, 4-star hotels, which would actually be where they would shoot the porn itself in the hotel rooms. According to the Wikipedia here, additionally, women have alleged being lied to in various ways by one of the men, Garcia, to convince them to enter his apartment. In some cases, he said the women should stay at his apartment before he drove them to the airport the next morning. And then in other cases, he feigned needing to stop at his apartment and suggested the women should come inside briefly. They were given contracts in hard-to-understand legal terminology. Not that these girls were the brightest of the bunch, I suspect.
Legal terminology is always difficult to understand, even if you are reasonably intelligent.
There were reports the company employees got the women drunk before signing or smoked marijuana with them. Now, mind you, they chose to drink the drinks, and they chose to smoke the marijuana, and it was all, I'm sure, very fun at the time. And then they signed these documents. FBI complaint said the company prevented the women from keeping copies of the contracts. That's pretty suspicious. And filming lasted up to 7 hours. And they, let's see here, there were reports of the men being verbally abusive. During the sex, some reported bleeding. Well, I'm not going to talk about that. Accounts of women document that if they expressed pain or refused to continue, they were told it was too late to withdraw. And in some cases, the exit was physically blocked by the men. Some women were also threatened with cancellation of their return flight or being asked to pay back the flight and hotel costs if they tried to renege on filming or refused to shoot an additional scene.
Well, that certainly sounds like non-consensual sex. It sounds like rape.
Yeah. And this company was indicted in October of 2019 for federal counts of sex trafficking. And according to the story, one of the male performers for the videos pled guilty to the trafficking counts. And so now they're going after Pornhub and, trying to get millions of dollars out of them because Pornhub was allegedly aware of girls do porn, and it was actually, in point of fact, entering into a letter of intent to purchase Girls Do Porn's video library. But then they claimed that during their due diligence for the acquisition, MindGeek learned of the fraud and the coercion and then backed out of the purchase. So they didn't actually buy this company. But they also apparently didn't really take down the channel either.
Even after learning about all of this?
I'm not sure exactly of the timetable. But according to the story, they actually left.
So Pornhub is also a villain in this story.
Purportedly.
If they knew the content was acquired using these coercive and immoral means, the right thing to have done here would have been to take down the content, not to continue monetizing it.
After learning about the fraud, or learning about the fraud wasn't enough to stop MindGeek from continuing to partner with and promote the company after that, according to the lawsuit. In August of 2019, Vice asked Pornhub why they were still featuring Girls Do Porn as a content partner when the company was accused by these women as these allegations. And it wasn't until 2 months later, after the FBI indictment of sex trafficking, that Pornhub then removed Girls Do Porn's official channel. And then
does it give the MindGeek response to Vice's question about, hey, why are you still allowing this content that is a result of rape and coercion and fraud?
There's a whole article about that, so I don't know. I haven't read that.
There's probably a lengthy Vice article about it. Yeah.
I'm just going to wait for the movie,
it won't be as good as Tiger King, man,
or at least the documentary.
Well, you like to have a sympathetic hero, though, and it doesn't sound like there really even is. I know
that's why this movie is going to be so great. They're all going to be a bunch of gullible, dummy girls, sleazy dudes.
There's no excuse for committing fraud. Obviously, these people are bad guys. But look, ladies. The porn industry for a long time has been associated with some real scummy characters. Maybe you hadn't caught wind of that. You haven't heard of the casting couch in Hollywood or whatever. But, there's been a lot of really kind of scummy practices in the porn business.
And it's not just the porn business. It's just movies in general, right?
Sure,
there's
that's
all
true.
sorts of allegations regarding Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah, how long is that? Wasn't that about in 2019 when this hit? When these lawsuits started dropping?
What, with Weinstein?
When the Weinstein cases were...
I think it was a little earlier than that. But either way, there's been no shortage of allegations about the porn business and people, being dishonest and all kinds of just, bad business practices out there. If somebody's offering you several $1,000s for 30 minutes worth of work, it's possible that this is too good to be true.
Mm-hmm.
And if this company has already lied to you once, you should be more alert to further lies they may tell you.
Right.
And something as unbelievable as, oh no, we're just going to sell this to private collectors or, I mean, that alone is like, hold on, who are the private collectors buying this porn, first of all? Or we're going to distribute it on DVD in Australia. There were so many chances here for a person to go, yeah, this doesn't seem right. Something about this is not right. I'm out.
I'm not denying that there was probably some real sleaziness going on where dudes were like, no, you can't renege now, or we're going to keep the money. I don't deny that for a second, but
no, that's one of the most plausible parts of the story.
But as far as them having sex on tape with these dudes, I think it's just buyer's remorse. I'm thinking someone came to them and says, hey, look, you could get $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
We need more of you. If we get a whole slew of you, we're going to get each one of you $1 million. This is buyer's remorse. This is
they didn't mean to buy, so to speak, internet
it was a
pornography.
fraudulent product.
Yeah, but I mean, this is hey, I can get more than 6,000 or 2,000 or whatever it was.
Well, it's like Arya said, there's
million?
no good guys here in this situation.
Yeah, they're certainly not campaigning to have the videos taken down because evidently they've been taken down.
Well, there was
money.
one girl who wanted it down, but what about the rest of them?
Well, she's part of the lawsuit.
She
wants the money.
They wanted them down. They were going to kill themselves, all 40 of them, according to the lawsuit.
Join the discussion that's probably happening about this subject over at social.freetalklive.com. We occasionally hang out there, social.freetalklive.com.
When Monster Hunter International discovers one of Isaac Newton's wardstones being auctioned off, they decide to steal it and use it to destroy the Chaos God once and for all. But a mysterious thief upends their plan, and it soon becomes a race against time as something much older and infinitely more evil awakens in the jungles of South America. Monster Hunter Bloodlines by New York Times bestselling author Larry Correia and Baen Books. Visit monsterhunternation.com for more.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless free market non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com. Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
This is the Liberty Radio Network, broadcasting the latest liberty-oriented audio content 24 hours a day at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. U.S. President Joe Biden says his administration is prioritizing door-to-door outreach to convince reluctant Americans to get vaccinated. It comes after the Biden administration missed its target to have 70% of the U.S. population vaccinated with at least one dose by July 4th. FSN's Nick Harper reports from Washington.
President Biden said it would be the focus of the summer to make it easier for people to get a shot and encourage the unvaccinated to get vaccinated.
As we shift from these centralized mass vaccination sites where we're doing thousands of people a day, we're going to put even more emphasis on getting vaccinated in your community, close to home, conveniently, and a location you're already familiar with.
The government will be offering more door-to-door outreach in communities where vaccination rates are low, in particular in states in the south of the country, as well as setting up vaccination clinics in workplaces. Biden said these efforts would hopefully provide America with a summer of hope and joy.
The European Commission has unveiled a new sustainable finance strategy designed to drive money into climate-friendly investments. The strategy aims to harness banks and markets to make the continent climate neutral by 2050. FSN's Lucy Hoff has more from Brussels.
The strategy laid out by the EU's executive sets out detailed milestones for the financial sector, as well as companies and households, to reach the bloc's climate goals. The aim is to channel private finance into sustainable investments like wind power, solar energy and water stocks. EU member states will be asked by the summer of 2023 to assess how their financial markets contribute to reaching net zero by 2050. Brussels will work alongside the European Central Bank to set intermediate targets for the financial sector. Lucy Hoff, Brussels.
The S&P 500 broke a 7-day winning streak on Tuesday, while the Dow also dropped more than 200 points. It comes amid signs investors are having doubts about the strength of the U.S. economy. FSN's Sarah Walton reports.
Tuesday kicked off a shortened week of trading after the July 4th long holiday weekend, but there was little to celebrate on the markets. The Nasdaq was up 0.2%, but the Dow closed down 0.6%, or 205 points lower. The S&P recovered some earlier losses, but still fell over 0.5%, pulled down by losses for Caterpillar, JP Morgan and Chevron. It comes as ISM Services Index data released on Tuesday showed purchasing in the services sector slowed in June, slumping from a record high in May. Long-term Treasury yields also hit their lowest levels since February, in another sign that the economic recovery from the pandemic could be slowing. Sarah Walton, New York.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Last month, the FDA approved Hallucex, a new class of weight loss drug that helps users avoid overeating by producing nightmarish hallucinations whenever food is around. Hallucex targets the brain's cerebral cortex, stimulating the centers responsible for fear and visual processing. Test subjects reported an unprecedented decrease in appetite and showed dramatic weight loss, with only 18% reporting night terrors or subsequent cardiac arrest.
It's designed to make fatty and sugary foods even scarier. An apple just looks like it has fangs, but a milkshake will threaten you and your family by name.
Earlier incarnations of the drug proved to be too powerful and produced mental states in which test subjects no longer believed that food had ever existed. An unshakable belief that the subject had to eat all of the food on the planet in order to prevent food from rising up and destroying the human race.
No, you don't understand. I have to do this.
Or the conviction that food could be negotiated with diplomatically. With the Lab Report, I'm Aisha Patel.
This is the Onion News Network.
The latest episode of Declare Your Independence is next, here on the Liberty Radio Network, LRN.FM.
And now, live from the studios of Freedom's